Everyone ready? Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Councilman Schwartz, Councilman Belcher,
Here.
Councilman Goldberg,
Here.
Councilman Organ,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Katz, Deputy Mayor G,
Here.
Mayor Pagan.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 299-2023, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2024 by way of resolution number 2-2024, applying a copy in the Township Clerk's office and posting on the municipal building bulletin board. The mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Township Administration present at tonight's meeting are Dean Kaczynski, Township Manager, Doug Roussillon, Township Clerk, Thomas Rowe, Deputy Township Manager, Scott Salmon, Township Attorney, and Ron Goodman, Volunteer Cablecaster. For the public's information, we are currently holding a hybrid format meeting. We have people in person and on Zoom. If our Wi-Fi at the municipal building has an issue where the Zoom meeting drops, we will aim to retrieve the connection and restart the meeting. The next televised regular council meeting will take place on Tuesday, February 27th at 6:30 p.m. The public portion of that meeting will begin at 8 p.m. Township offices will be closed on Monday, February 19th in observance of President's Day. Now, can everyone please bow their heads for a brief moment of silence for several former township employees who recently passed away, including Eugene O'Reilly, Sarah Jones, and Robert Wissikirk. Please bow your heads. Thank you. Council met in closed session to discuss the following topics earlier this evening: community choice energy aggregation, OSRP and Rossi, Sagamore Park drainage, the Palisades Avenue pedestrian overpass, the potential sale of township land, security, escrows, electric vehicles, abandoned property, legal issues and opinions regarding items on the open session agenda, litigation updates, and Oprah. Now, before we move on to the next order of business, I just want to say thank you to our DPW for everything they are doing to clear our streets during today's storm for our residents, because we have more than 400 streets to pave in Teaneck, and it is no easy task. So thank you to everyone at our DPW for all your hard work. Okay, our next order of business is presentations, and we had something special scheduled for TVAC, but they are working hard right now to help protect our residents. So we will be doing that presentation during our next council meeting in 2 weeks, which means we can move on to the next order of business on the agenda, which is work session items and miscellaneous. Does anyone on council have anything for miscellaneous? No, moving on. The next order of business is old business. Does anyone have anything for old business? Seeing no hands. Next up is new business. Anybody have anything for new business? No, moving along. Communications. Proposed street renaming of Windsor Road for Rabbi Louis Siegel. I think that was you, Karen, Ms. Organ.
Can I actually give my presentation first on our committee update on our street naming and then tie it into you, or do you want to go first?
No, go for it.
Is that just
Yeah.
same thing?
No, please, feel free.
The subcommittee of Councilwoman Belcher, Councilwoman Organ, and myself met and discussed our street renaming. Doesn't seem like this is on, but and we basically decided not to overly complicate something. What we would do is, if there's ever a desire, if someone approaches a council member for a street renaming, it would first be brought up at a meeting, no votes, so no one's caught off guard. It would then be mentioned. A bio would be then submitted. In this case, there was a bio submitted by the manager, I believe, and then it would be discussed at the next meeting. So the goal was that there's no surprises. No, I don't know what this is. There's family members in the audience and you're caught off guard. So there's at least one meeting to then have that conversation. We are still talking through the idea of, is there a capacity per year, maximum per year, which didn't come up, which there was no desire to move forward on. And there was one other item, and there was I forgot what the other item discussed was, but again, there was no desire to make any concrete decisions other than to not jump any voting and to make sure there's a written bio so everyone has at least a meeting to read it. Did I summarize that properly? Okay. With that, sorry, I believe if you could just turn over to Councilman Organ on a matter that was presented to the manager. I'm not sure if everyone read the. Oh, sorry. I take your thunder.
So was the thought to revisit criteria at a later time, or is the thought there won't be any more complicated criteria?
I can answer
we're being
that.
complicated. Sorry, go. Sorry.
The thought was not to overly complicate it. So we've named streets after musical talent. We've named streets after people who have passed away. The senior citizens nominated Carol Otis. It brought them comfort. We named a street after Henry Pruitt so we could celebrate his life with him. We named a street after a young mother that passed away. We named a street after a rabbi who has served his community. So instead of saying they need to be with us, not with us, having lived here for a certain amount of time, there is no criteria for this other than these are people that council, it's council speech, and these are people that council would like to name streets after. So someone compelling to us. The one requirement was we wanted a letter from the presenters, and then a bio about the person so that we could learn about them.
Just chime in on that as well. I think the whole idea is that we wanted to bring back to the council the bio, or to share with the council the bio of that person, and why that it's felt that that person's life has represented receiving the acclaim of having a street named after them.
So there's no background checks, no criminal history, like we're just no vetting whatsoever, except for looking at a bio.
I don't think it would ever be anybody that people in town didn't know. In this case, we have a well-known rabbi in town vouching for another rabbi who served the community for 40 years. So I think we're looking, this is not like putting someone on the youth advisory board where we want to make sure that they have a background check. This is something different than that. And we don't have to name after anybody any year, but if there are people that come up that compel us to do that, then we can.
I just want to say I really like the idea of the bio for the council, but also for the public in the agenda packets. I think it's important that the public also know the bio. So I just wanted to say I like this.
Anyone else? Thank you, Karen, because Rabbi Sirbu reached out to me too, and I'm in favor.
Okay, so the mayor and the manager got a letter from Rabbi Sirbu on January 1st requesting that Windsor Road, where Temple Emeth is, be named for Rabbi Siegel. Northwest corner of Windsor Road and Briarcliff Road. And so we went back to him and we asked for a bio about Rabbi Siegel, and I did not know any of the things that are in the bio, but they so impressed me. So they're in the packet, but I would just like to read it for now. Rabbi Louis Joel Siegel was born on October 28, 1923, a graduate of Yale College. He was ordained a rabbi by the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in 1951. Rabbi Siegel came to Temple Emeth in 1960, having served the first 9 years of his career in Malden, Massachusetts. It was a difficult time for the congregation. Rabbi Joshua Trachtenberg had died suddenly the year before, and it fell upon Rabbi Siegel to help the congregation heal and to give them stability with a new spiritual leader. Rabbi Siegel possessed several gifts that made him equal to the task. He was a gifted orator and a talented teacher. His class that met weekly for years to study every page of the Bible from cover to cover became legendary. He was a compassionate pastor and an inspirational role model. Several of his former students went on to careers in the Jewish community. He was a learned scholar and a passionate advocate for social justice. But perhaps most importantly, he was a friend to so many in our community who simply called him Lou. They appreciated his clarinet playing and the way he threw a Yiddish word into a sentence. During his tenure here, Rabbi Siegel was active in making the township of Teaneck a better place. He supported the effort in the early 1960s to desegregate the public schools. His oratory in favor of the move was highlighted in his obituary in the New York Times. Where'd my Peter? That same article mentions that he was a founder and the first president of the Teaneck Clergy Council in the early 1970s. It was the Clergy Council, while Rabbi Siegel was still an active member, that worked to keep the peace in Teaneck following the police killing of Philip Pinnell in 1990. Rabbi Siegel also advocated for Temple Emeth to sell the land for the establishment of a mikvah, ritual bath in Teaneck in the 1980s. Rabbi Siegel believed it was an important statement about Jewish unity and promoting diversity in Teaneck. It had an additional advantage because a Reform synagogue was a party to the establishment of the mikveh. The temple included a provision, still enforced to this day, that the mikveh be available to rabbis of all movements to bring their conversion candidates for immersion, the final step of the conversion process. Rabbi Siegel served Temple Emeth actively for 32 years, and for most of that time lived with his family at the corner of Windsor Road and Briarcliff Road. When he retired in 1992, he began an active retirement, which included teaching and officiating at life cycle events. In 2004, he was elected president of the National Association of Retired Reform Rabbis. Rabbi Siegel died in June of 2005 at the age of 81. Nearly 2 decades later, the Township of Teaneck continues to benefit from his legacy of scholarship, compassion, and social justice. So indeed, I learned a lot about this. The other issue that Temple Emeth has right now is every other year they have a biennial weekend where they support Rabbi Serbu, and that's coming up in March of this year. And so I don't know if the 27th is enough time. I guess it is, if it's in March. But they would like the street named in March when friends and family and former congregants come together to name. So I do have the resolution that I was going to ask to walk on tonight, but not realizing that we were not going to nominate in the same meeting. I'm happy to introduce it if we have 4 nodding heads for the next meeting.
Just a quick question on since we're doing the resolution next meeting, so we don't have to do it this next time. So it'd be on the northwest corner of Windsor and Briarcliff. Does it make sense to have an extra sign closer to the building since Briarcliff is kind of far? I don't know if that makes sense. That goes in the resolution. If there's a preference, I was just thinking.
So we have it on the 2 corners usually, and then I think we usually give, Doug would know, an extra one to the family for the home or the synagogue to keep inside.
Okay, good. I'm good.
All right, thank you, Ms. Organ. Does anyone have anything else under
Is
communications?
that resolution, sorry, Mayor, is that resolution you want to consider it for next meeting?
Yeah.
Or tonight? Okay, cool. You got it.
Anybody got anything else for communications? No? Moving on, next order of business, committee reports by council liaisons, Affordable Housing Subcommittee update, Ms. Belcher.
Okay, yes. So I just want to give an update that the Affordable Housing Subcommittee met on February 5th. This subcommittee is tasked with looking at the new affordable housing legislation that is pretty fluid right now. It's a situation where we have some legislation that's coming down from the state that really speaks to how municipalities will be handling affordable housing and whether or not COA, the Coalition on Affordable Housing, will still work the way it has up to now. There is a new round, the 4th round, that will begin next year. So all municipalities have to create a plan. So we met and we had our attorney there. And one of the questions that we asked is looking at options in terms of giving priority to Teaneck residents on affordable units. We also engaged our planner. Our planner explained the process. And it doesn't look like we have reached the threshold to be able to do that, but we are constantly looking at possibilities by which we can afford our residents, affordable housing options. So that is the update. Our next meeting is February 28th. Thank you.
Ms. Belcher. Ms. Goldberg.
I have a couple of just questions. I don't know if the attorney answers or the subcommittee. The next round to begin, that looks at, have we met our number or can it come down? Like, do we know? Is that an option?
The number is unlikely to go down. It's only likely to just go up. From where?
I'm sorry, you cut out. I couldn't. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I would not expect our number to go down. It is almost certainly going to go and just go up from where it is now.
So there's no way that they say you've met your, like, we're at a good number now. I'm just.
No, because we haven't met the number from the previous round, so they're not going to revise that previous number. It's just going to be looking forward to this next round.
And then one other question tying into, I don't know how many months ago, but it's definitely in a packet when we discussed this at a zoning subcommittee meeting, that there were units that were coming off of our affordable housing numbers from COA. Did the subcommittee, or can the subcommittee explore ways to keep those units on so we don't lose those numbers?
What we can do is we can certainly look at the criteria in which apparently affordable housing units do expire. So that's how they drop off. So what we have done is we've engaged our attorney to look at ways in which we can either replenish those or expand the timeline on them And we're working very closely with the attorney in terms of options and opportunities, as well as with our planner.
I have one more question, not to belabor this, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I guess the other question for the subcommittee and the lawyer to potentially look at, is there a way that any of the older units, and I know we've kind of talked about this in theory, but I'm just questioning, is there a way that any of the older units that aren't subject to this could be somehow negotiated to include it in future numbers? Is that something that you guys could look at also?
It appears,
understand the question.
yeah, I'm thinking that the older
Like the
units,
older buildings.
older buildings are typically the ones that are expiring,
Right.
over time. So
I know we talked about this once, but I'm just curious if there's a pot, like the Cedar Lane apartments is what I'm thinking.
Are you talking about older, non-restricted apartments
Yes.
or making them restricted?
Well, not necessarily making them restricted. I'm just wondering if there's any negotiation with it. Yes, if there's a negotiation to have with the owners of those buildings.
Well, any negotiation, and again, I do this all day long. I'm actually extending two of my regulatory agreements for restricting periods. What are you giving me? So on two of the buildings, I'm getting 40 years of no taxes. So you take a building like Cedar Lane, which pays $180,000 in taxes, you could put these 200 units on the 80 units on on COA, and then we're going to waive all the taxes. So I'm not really sure that's where we really want to be going right now. What we're really trying to focusing on is finding out what our number is, which apparently in New Jersey is very hard to do. Hit that number, and then as Councilwoman Belcher incredibly figured out, if we can hit that number and go over that number, we then can have new affordable housing in town restricted to our residents. And I think what we've heard and listened to our neighbors for years now, that is the number one goal. Affordable housing isn't the number one goal. Affordable housing for current homeowners or current residents is the number one goal. So that's really what our mission is. And this is something that, and to give credit to Councilman Belcher for me figured out, that we're really trying to hone in on this just a few days ago. So we're really trying to hone in, because now if all of a sudden we take a particular project, say a project on the State Street, and we say, hold on, we want to have this on the neighborhood. So I don't want this in my backyard. Yeah, but what if 40 of those units go to you in your backyard? That's a game changer for something we've been putting finally these pieces together. So sorry, I'm a little emotional about this. It's like,
No, I think it's a great idea. I'm
this
just
is
trying
what
to
we're-
figure out
this
if there's
is
a way to
what
hit that number sooner
so
to
this
make
is
that
where we're going
possible.
to.
Yeah.
But your
So-
questions are a little more
Yeah.
drilled down, that we're not there yet.
Okay.
to answer. Can I-
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very, very good. That's a good, all good points. What we're doing is we're working very diligently. As you can see, we're having 2 meetings in February, because if there was an opportunity in which we could identify 1425, which is 100% affordable and 100% senior citizens, if there's any way in which we could have some type of priority given to our residents, I would think that my colleagues would agree we would want to work toward that, right? So, so that's what we're working toward.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you all. Does anyone else have any committee reports? No, I have a brief advisory board report. Our Pride Advisory Board met last week for the first time in 2 years, and it was wonderful to sit down with the new members to discuss Pride events and activism that they plan on taking part on during the next year. Does anyone have anything from any advisory boards before we move on? No? Okay. Next order of business, council listed items, proposed resolution in honor of Black History Month. Ms. Belcher.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so we all know that February is Black History Month, and we have so many activities and events that are going around. I'm sure we all have taken in different opportunities. It's a great opportunity in February where we see our young people that come out and do different events. Our churches are brimming with opportunities that really speak to our history, because Black history is American history. So in light of the fact that we are, a community that really celebrates Black history, I just kind of put together a resolution that I would like for consideration for my colleagues to approve, and it's simply in honor of Black History Month. And I'll just briefly read it. It is, whereas free and fair elections by providing equal access to the ballot for all Americans is a cornerstone principle of our democracy. And whereas in the interest of the people, integrity in elections and ethics on all levels of government makes for a strong, viable, and enduring democracy. And whereas it is critical that all citizens have a voice and their voice be heard by elected officials who remain accountable to the voting public. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Teaneck Council Teaneck Township Council advocates for the end of discrimination of all forms in the voting process and equal access to the ballot. And be it further resolved that the Teaneck Township Council is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the makeup of our government, advisory, and statutory boards. And be it further resolved that in this Black History Month of February 2024, the Teaneck Council champions the cause for democracy and supports Teaneck residents and all Americans in the pursuit of voting rights. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to submit that.
Is it for discussion later or now? I have one, okay, just one thing that really confused me, and it's obviously Black History Month is very important. The Teaneck Council in the discrimination of voting process and equal access to the ballot. Where's the Teaneck? Is there something I'm missing about the Teaneck? Is this like a nationwide push or something? What's the connection between Township Council's discrimination and voting process? No, I've never heard of any of this in Teaneck of having any difficulty. I could be naive in this. No, it's not something,
no, it's really basically saying that we advocate for the voting process and equal access to the ballot. That we as leaders, we believe in the democratic way of votes being counted, what our Constitution speaks to in terms of everyone being able to have access to the ballot. That's what that means, Councilman.
right. What's the connection to Black History Month? Is this, I mean, again, this is a nationwide push.
What is
Please
it?
fill me,
Okay.
fill me in if there's a nationwide thing going on that I'm not aware of.
Have you ever heard of voter suppression tactics?
100%.
So it's just saying that we are in support of, or not in support of voter suppression or anything that would reduce people's access to vote.
Is this if I Google this, this is a big, this is what all these town, every town is doing right now. I don't want to make, or is this like their own initiative here? I'm a little bit clueless right now.
Voter suppression has been going on for decades.
But not in Teaneck. I've never, and we all only lived here 29 years, and everyone likes to
I-
talk about that. Is there?
I don't think the
this
resolution is
this gets
accusing
very
Teaneck of
personal,
doing it.
Very, very personal.
No, it's
not.
saying that Teaneck is in support of
support of
equitable
not
access to
having-
voting. Yeah.
Right, that we are in support of not having voter suppression, that we are taking a leadership role as a town council, saying that we believe in the American way, we believe in a voting process, we believe in equal access to the ballot. That is what
Affirmative.
this is saying.
I'm very glad that the town is doing a lot for Black History Month. I'm glad that the library was very involved. I feel like we should have a more inclusive resolution. I don't know if we want to do it on February 27th, but I think I think we should have a better resolution. Forgetting this and putting it aside, I think there's more that we can do for Black History Month. I think what Councilman Schwartz was trying to say was we celebrate our poll workers and the clerk's office here. I don't think we've ever had an issue with them suppressing anybody. And yeah, I would like to see something else at the next. Maybe there's even some language that we could take from somewhere else, but I think this is more about, I'm not done. But I'm not done. This doesn't really talk about Voter History Month. This is a resolution on voter suppression. I think we should introduce something else. That's all.
Councilman.
Okay, I disagree. This is in honor of Black History Month. Black Americans have had a specific fight when it comes to voter rights within this nation. And what this resolution does, it honors the struggle. It honors what they were enabling, what they were able to do. From the 1964 Voter Rights Act, all the way from 1866, from the first Civil Rights Act to today. So this is simply a resolution that identifies an American struggle that African Americans have dealt with.
In the past, this council has brought forth resolutions that we didn't all agree on. In the past, we've been told, you don't understand, you don't have the perspective. Denise Belcher is an African-American woman. I'm an African-American woman. Denise Belcher has brought forth a resolution. You all may not understand clearly from the questions I've heard what it means. For some reason, you feel it's accusatory, but I think it's celebrating TNEC and celebrating what we stand for. In the past, we've been asked, can you please support this resolution? You may not understand, but please support it because it's important to us. We understand our residents and our community better than you may. I think we should give Denise that same respect today. To sit here and tell her what a Black History Month resolution should look like, it really feels absurd. Rather than nip at the words, I really think we should support our fellow council colleague.
Yeah, just to be straight with all of y'all, I'm okay with this language, Ms. Goldberg, but I didn't hear a motion yet, but Ms. Goldberg.
I just want to say I'm fine with the resolution. These are the life experiences of the African Americans in this country and the town, and I do not have that life experience, and I'm not going to tell anyone how to have their life experience and what they've experienced. And I respect that, so I'm fine with the wording of the resolution.
I make a motion that we approve of this resolution as written.
Second.
Councilman Schwartz.
Can we have discussion after the resolution? I mean, after the motion?
Go ahead.
Wait, the motion is to get on the consent agenda or
I
to?
think, yeah, it's to be placed onto the consent agenda.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
I'm sorry, Ms. Organ.
So I don't have a problem with the resolution. I just would like to introduce another resolution for Black History Month. And I don't see why that would be an issue. We've done one every year in the past, going backwards. It doesn't, if it needs to be written by a Black American, then let it be written by one. I don't
am
see-
a Black American
I
and I
understand.
wrote this resolution. I don't need, if you want to write another resolution, Karen, you write a resolution, but I am proposing this resolution in honor of Black History Month.
I understand what you're saying. You're not understanding what I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so just this resolution and no other resolution because I'm not able to write it.
I'm speaking,
Okay.
we have a motion on the floor right now.
Yes.
Julie, Mr.
Does
Mayor.
anyone else have any comments before we have a roll call?
Yeah. Okay.
We're listening to this. Is that the votes for?
Yes, to add it to the consent.
Mr.
agenda,
Clerk.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, and just to just to clarify to council, this would be adding it to the consent agenda as resolution number 77-2024. There was a first from Councilwoman Belcher and a second from Deputy Mayor G. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher.
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
Added to consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The next order of business is KMC Legal Services. Deputy Mayor G.
So I can't remember which meeting it was where we heard from the two groups who would like to build their monuments on the municipal green. That meeting, I think at that same meeting, all the council members received numbers from our town manager, and I had a lot of questions about these numbers, and I thought that it made sense for us to do an audit of the two organizations just for us to better understand the uses of state dollars that were given to those organizations. So I reached out to Dean and I said, can we please hire a firm to do a forensic audit of those organizations just to ensure that those dollars were being used appropriately. If we're going to commit to having these organizations build long-term structures on our municipal greens, I really feel strongly that we should know the organizations that we're working with. So this resolution is to introduce, to conduct that audit, basically.
So you're making a motion to add this to the consent agenda?
Yes, I just want to give everyone that background. So yes, can we please add this to the consent agenda?
I'll
And then I
I'll
also
second
just
that.
wanted to, sorry.
Second. Does it require a second? No.
Oh, sorry. I was just seconding to add to the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
I think, did you want to add anything?
No, I didn't know if she
Deputy
was
Mayor
making
G.
a motion or not.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
if you were reaching for something.
Sorry, I want to make a motion to add it to the agenda. I think Councilman Goldberg seconded.
And this would be resolution 78-2024 this evening. The special legal services for KMC. There was a first from Deputy Mayor G, second from Councilwoman Goldberg. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes to list.
Councilwoman Belcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ,
Yes to list.
Deputy Mayor Katz, Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
Resolution 78 listed tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next order of business, Township Managers Report. Mr. Kaczynski, the floor is yours, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I have a bunch of announcements to make, important announcements. Recycling in Zone 1 will be collected tomorrow. This is due to today's snowstorm. Zone 1 was supposed to be picked up today.
1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2 will be picked up. 2 is normal on Wednesday, so 1 will be added to because of the holiday,
3 is normal. So it's
because of Monday's holiday. So 1 and 2 are being picked up tomorrow. 1 was supposed to be picked up today
okay.
because of the holiday. Just a reminder, parking of any vehicle on any portion of the street during a snow emergency is prohibited, unfortunately. And I do my best in relaxing the parking restrictions in our municipal lots earlier than normal, but we had to unfortunately issue a total of 269 tickets for people in violation of the snow ordinance between 8 a.m. from the time it started to 5 p.m. when the snow emergency ended. 269,
How much?
269.
Times 50. I'm sorry, I didn't keep the times how much? I like the report every year. Times how much? How many?
I believe it's a $50 fine.
950. Thank you very much. I'll stop going.
Just a reminder, in Jersey, drivers are required to remove snow and ice from your vehicles. The penalties are between $25 and $75. If it causes an accident and or injury, you face $200 to $1,500. I'm sorry, $1,000 for each offense. And also, if it causes an accident while you're driving, it's evidence of negligence. So it's so important to remove that snow and ice from your car. Happy to report that Glenna Crockett, our recreation superintendent, was chosen to receive the Michael B. Berman Award for administrative excellence. And again, this award is given to honor and identify dedicated leaders in the fields of recreation and to recognize her outstanding performance and the agency that she represents. So she's going to be given a nice certificate of recognition on February 27th in Atlantic City. Unfortunately, that's a day of a council meeting, or else I would have attended. We received a call. I received a call from the Division of Consumer Affairs yesterday regarding our pending complaint against the Post Office, United States Postal Service, seeking reimbursement. They said there's a good chance the township will recover the $7,278 in postage for the fourth quarter tax bills that went missing in the fall. Other good news, we received our Moody's rating report. The town affirmed, Moody's affirmed our AA2 long-term rating and assigned its highest short-term rating of, they call it MIG-1 to the notes. It also should be noted that the township improved its report card in several areas. One area was under long-term liabilities ratio. We improved from a BAA to an A. And under our fixed cost ratio, we improved from an A to a AA. So that was good news. That will certainly help us with our interest rate. Public information meeting is set for February 22nd between 6 and 8 p.m. And this is via Microsoft Teams. And this is for a public information meeting to discuss the East Anderson Street Cedar Lane Bridge project. And again, it's on February 22nd between 6 and 8 p.m. The information is contained on our website, and you'll see a link there from Microsoft Teams to connect. Holy Name Medical Center and our health department is going to be running 3 consecutive walking groups called Strollers to Sneakers, and that's on May 10th, 17th, and 24th. And the walking group will meet at Votey Park, and they'll continue around the track. As we get closer to those dates, I'll certainly share more information and a flyer with everyone. Some project updates. Hawthorne Field, the contractor was there last week and conditioned the field. They're going to make another stop there next week. That should be their final stop, weather permitting, and that's to check on the final grade and conduct a final roll of the facility. So that field should be done in its entirety sometime the latter end of next week, weather permitting. Regarding Teaneck Southern Little League, just an update on that project. We're going to set a groundbreaking ceremony It could be as early as next week. Yesterday, I met with the contractor and the president of TSLL to iron out some last minute details and finalize some color schemes. And TSLL is going to have to work with Glenn and our recreation department on an alternate field site while the work is performed. Obviously, the field's not going to be done in time for their opening season, which is, I believe, April 1st. Pedestrian bridge that connects Windsor to Palisade Avenue. We're going to be moving forward with that project. We secured monies to have the structural engineer oversee some emergency work. I'm hopeful that work should start within the next 30 days, and hopefully get the bridge open before the summer begins. And that's just prelim work. Again, that will get the bridge open. However, there will still need to be some final work done at a later date. An update on fire dispatch. We're going to be updating the shared service agreement with the city of Hackensack. And right now, we're shooting for a start date of July 1st. We're still, again, running into some issues with the fiber optic connections, but they will be done. We have to update our shared service agreement with the city of Hackensack for fire dispatching, but the chief says he anticipates a July 1st start date. And Doug, I don't know if you can pull this up. Andreas Park pickleball court updates. That's expected to go out to bid on February 29th. We plan on doing the opening of the bids on March 19th and awarding the project on April 2nd. This slide will actually show 4 dedicated pickleball courts at the facility, and this is at Andreas Park. Each court's going to be separated by a 4-foot-high vinyl fencing, and the courts are going to be blue and green with white lines. And I don't know if that other slide will pop up, Doug, that has the sort of like a color scheme of what they're going to look like. But there's no need to, that'll be the color scheme, blue and green, but there'll be no need to modify the surrounding fence. We'll be able to bid for dedicated pickleball courts at Andreas Park. Thank you, Doug. Engineering will be submitting plans to Green Acres by the end of this month with regards to the Herrick Park Playground. We'll probably receive some comments from Green Acres once they receive it. We'll be doing separate advertising for the renovations to Herrick Park. We'll be separating a few things, and we're looking at a spring start once it's advertised and awarded. We'll also be awarding the Voti Park prefab bathroom project this evening. The Voti Park Shade and Shelter was ordered. There's a 6 to 8 week lead time on that project. Probably an late to April start for construction, and we're going to be going out to bid very soon for the 2023 roadway resurfacing project. We're moving forward with the 1600 River Road DPW project on tonight's agenda. We have the proposals from our LSRP, excuse me, that's Verdontis, and our special engineer, who is Collier's Engineering, and they will work together in preparing an engineering plan and design for a potential new facility. List of streetlight upgrades was recently forwarded to PSE&G. They're going to upgrade 5% of our existing lighting to LED bulbs each year until that project is done, all at no cost to the township. The police department recently sent me a bunch of lights that I forwarded to PSE&G for the upgrade for this year. Window installation at Fire Station 4 begins this week. The roof replacement starts the beginning of March. And the township is in the process of submitting a grant application through local improvement, recreation improvements. And what we want to do is apply for this grant for new exercise equipment at Phelps Park and Brooks Park that will replace some of the older equipment there. And we also submitted our Green Acres application for Sagamore Park improvement project on February 7th. So that's moving forward as well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Next order of business is our Township Attorney's report. Mr. Salmon, do you have anything, sir?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Our next order of business is our public hearing and adoption of ordinances. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the title of the ordinance into the record?
Yes, sir, Mayor. We have just one ordinance this evening. Ordinance 3-2024, amending the Township Code to revise parking laws on Farrant Terrace for residential decal parking. Ordinance 3-2024.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The public hearing on this ordinance and this ordinance only is now open. Does anyone want to speak to it? If you do, you have 3 minutes. Anybody in chambers?
Again, I'm reminding our folks on Zoom, as our mayor so eloquently said, this public hearing is strictly for ordinance 3-2024, Ferent Terrace parking regulations. If you have any other comments that do not have to do with this ordinance, please wait just a couple minutes for our general good and welfare. I'm bringing Jasmine Ray in. Jasmine, this is just a friendly reminder that this is strictly on the ordinance 3-2024, this public hearing. And you have 3 minutes. You're free to unmute.
Oh, I lowered my hand. I was
Okay, thank you, Jasmine.
Anybody else on Zoom, Doug? No? Then this public hearing is closed. Does anyone on council want to speak about this ordinance? In that case, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Councilman Schwartz.
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher.
Yes.
Councilman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilman Morgan.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Our next order of business is good and welfare. Any member of the public wishing to be heard at this time can please come forward and state their names for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. And a friendly reminder, the clerk, if you're on Zoom, the clerk will only call on you if you have your full name listed. So if you're on Zoom, please list your first name and your last name. And we are asking everyone to unmute and have their camera on if called on Zoom. Again, if you would like to speak on Zoom during good and welfare, please have your camera on and unmute when called on. Mr. Gross.
Thank you. My name is Yigal Gross, and I'm a Teaneck resident. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about traffic safety. As many of you know, our community suffered a terrible tragedy several weeks ago. On the morning of January 25th, Diamond Friesen, a mother of 2 young daughters and the guardian of a young niece, was driving home on Palmer Avenue after dropping off her 2 kids at school when her car was struck by a Ford Explorer on the corner of Sherman Avenue. The other driver, a Bogota high school student who was with a classmate, sped through multiple stop signs and struck Ms. Freisen's SUV with such force that it hurled her car into a nearby house. As always, Teaneck's finest were on the scene. They worked valiantly to save Ms. Freisen's life, but unfortunately, she succumbed to her injuries and passed away the following morning. I pray for her family to find strength in this difficult time. This story struck close to home for me, literally. We live just around the corner from where this young mother lost her life. Palmer Avenue is a beautiful street. It's peaceful and quiet. It is a block frequented by many young children, including my own. It is where we take nature walks on Shabbat to observe birds and collect pine cones, and where we casually meet friends doing the same. Our streets should be places of warm memories and happiness, not tragedies. But the truth is that what happened here was part of a pattern. Just a few months ago, in the fall, an SUV speeding through stop signs on Palmer slammed into a transport minivan from Holy Name Hospital on the intersection between Palmer and Vandalinda, just a few yards from where Ms. Friesen lost her life. The collision happened with such force that the hospital's minivan did a full flip, which was caught on camera. I heard the crash from my home, the screech, the smash, the cries for help, and was on the scene within seconds. It was a miracle that no one was killed. Major accidents of this type should not take place on quiet residential streets, and that 2 happened on the same block in the span of just a few months is a call to action. All of us, drivers, pedestrians, law enforcement, and elected officials need to do more to keep Teaneck streets safe. As drivers, we can all afford to slow down. Chances are that someone you or your friends know lives on the block you are zooming down. We can show some courtesy and stop and let pedestrians cross the street. Even if they have no business crossing, be the bigger person. Stopping and making sure pedestrians cross safely is just the right thing to do. As pedestrians, we can wait for cars to stop for the next light. Don't play chicken with oncoming traffic. And let's look up from our phones in both ways when we cross the street. To law enforcement, know that you have our full support in enforcing the law. Cars who disregard pedestrian crosswalks, who run stop signs and/or traffic lights, or test their speedometers on quiet residential streets should get pulled over. They should pay big fines. There should be meaningful consequences for recklessness. And as elected officials, we need to find a way to make Teaneck streets safer. And I urge this body and our community to work together to find a way to do that so that what happened on Palmer Avenue never again happens on any other street in Teaneck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Doug, someone on Zoom?
Just Yes. Jesse Leon, please unmute.
Good evening, Jesse Leon, Teaneck resident. I have two quick items on my agenda tonight. One, I wanted to thank the township manager. After I complained about my street, I did notice that some of the potholes actually did get patched. But today, my street is a dead end and it stops and is not paved at the end. Today, I actually saw one of the plows tear up a couple inches of the paved street at the point at which the paved street and the unpaved street meet. It would be great if someone would just go ahead and pave the end of the street. And so we would have a complete paved street. We wouldn't get gravel rolling down and tearing up the cement. Also, my curb cut is like 2 inches higher than the street. That's most specifically what I was complaining about when I complained about the street. So we bump our bumper on because of the height differential. The other thing that I would like to talk about, obviously, is chickens. We're coming up on spring soon, at least on legislative time. So if you guys would like to introduce an ordinance at the next council meeting and then approve it at the following council meeting, by the time it's hatching season for young chicks, there might be a few Teaneck residents who might be able and eligible to purchase them. I encourage you to reach out to me. I'd be happy to resubmit to you the ordinance, the last version of the ordinance, or any of the other previous versions of the ordinance that we have submitted over the course of the last 3 years. Maybe this spring could be the spring that Teaneck unites around backyard chickens. Think about it. 4 of you are eligible to bring that ordinance forward, and maybe Deputy Mayor Katz will show up and vote for it. And that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leon. Ma'am, I think I saw your hand up. Yes, you miss.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Teresa Bayowitz. I'm a lifelong Teaneck resident, grew up here starting in 1985 and moved back in 2009 to raise my own family here. I've never spoken at a council meeting, but my 11-year-old son, Sammy, has spoken at a council meeting and 2 advisory board committee meetings. And I just wanted to introduce myself as the skate park mom and thank you all for taking Sammy and his friend Yonatan so seriously and really engaging with them in an education lesson that is better than anything they could have learned in a classroom about what it means to be civically engaged and advocate for things that are important to you. So for people who are listening, who don't remember the most amazing speech ever given at a Teaneck council meeting, my son, Sammy, who's 11, and his friend, Yonatan Hirschkorn, went to a skateboarding camp in Ridgewood this past summer, and they loved it. And they were so disappointed when they realized that Teaneck didn't have a skate park and that their parents were not going to be willing to drive them to Ridgewood all the time to practice their kick flips. So after they spoke at a council meeting in November to ask the town to consider installing a skate park, Councilwoman Goldberg followed up with me and invited them to the PPRA&B meeting a couple of weeks later, where they presented again to the Playground Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And the chairwomen of that committee, Allison Davis and Christina Palmy, were incredible. They really listened to these kids' requests, talked to them like adults, gave them a homework assignment to go out and assess whether this was something that was important to other Teaneck residents or if it was just the 2 of them. Told them to go look at potential locations for where the town might put a skate park. And with a little help from their parents, these boys launched an online petition that got about 500 signatures in the very first week from neighbors and friends, names we recognized, names we didn't recognize. I just want to share some of the comments that came in on their online petition because I think it's just a beautiful testament to what our community can do together. Somebody named Patrick Poon commented to them, "Please consider this and bring the need of a skate park to the Teaneck Town Manager and the Town Council and the Teaneck Recreation Department's Advisory Board." And then he followed up and said, "I just heard the council brought it up at their meeting. I think it's a great idea and would love to help out." Somebody named Joseph Hine commented, "I'm a skateboarder from Teaneck and it would benefit the inclusion and jiving of the communities within Teaneck tremendously." Somebody named Blythe Kaminsky commented, "Young kids need things to do that are outside, fun, inclusive, and interactive. I remember the old days of skateboarding and it was a great time filled with nice memories and cool subculture."
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Doug, someone on Zoom, and please remember, if you're going to be called on Zoom, please list your first name and your last name and turn on your camera.
We have former Councilwoman Javon Romney Rice here, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Doug, and good evening, Council. The clock hasn't started yet, but I guess I'll continue.
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure that I was given the fair amount of time. I just want to say thank you guys for coming out on such a lovely evening. I thought perhaps you were going to be on Zoom, but I see you're here in person. I just wanted to say thank you to Councilwoman Belcher for her resolution to honor Black History Month with the voting rights. In this day and age in 2024, yes, many states do have a challenge with voter suppression. And I'm glad to know that this council would stand behind making sure that elections are free of any obstacles, that diversity, equity, and inclusion is continued to be championed here in our township. And thank you, Denise, for that, putting it forth, and even for having to defend it, which I think it's kind of challenging to imagine that anyone would want to challenge how Black history and the relationship to voting rights, it is synonymous. Until we all have the right to vote freely with no obstruction, without any suppression, it continues to be an issue that needs to be championed. So thank you, Denise, for bringing it to the table, and I hope it's unanimously supported. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Javon. Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron Schwartz, 698 Larch Avenue, Teaneck. Three things tonight. One, as an individual, as Ron Schwartz individual, I want to urge you to support the resolution that was introduced on the consent agenda by Councilwoman Belcher tonight. It puts the council on record as being in favor of the fight for voting rights for African Americans. It puts the council on record as supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion on not only your advisory boards, but on your statutory boards as well. I think that's something we need to do for Black History Month, to respect the diversity of our town. Let me also add that I just don't think it's time today in Teaneck to quibble over the introduction or wording of a resolution supporting Black History Month introduced by a member, an African-American member of this body. It's just not time to do that. Second item, on behalf of One Town, One Vote, as a representative tonight, I want to thank the council and Councilwoman G for introducing a resolution, I believe it's number 78, to have an audit of the monies that were spent by the state and by the town on the monument committees. This is something now that One Town, One Vote has been requesting twice before this body, and I'm glad and congratulate the body that you are moving forward on this. And I would urge you to pass this resolution. The public has a right to know what happened with these monies. Third item, as the elected Democratic committee person for District 6 in Teaneck, which will be heavily impacted by the American Legion Drive redevelopment plan. I read the minutes of the zoning subcommittee for the January 12, 24 meeting, and it did have a reference there that Crossroads had come before the subcommittee to introduce a new design, a less dense design. On behalf of the people in my district, I would request that Councilperson Schwartz, Councilwoman Goldberg, or Mayor Pagan, who were present at this meeting, give us more detail than what's in the minutes of the subcommittee meeting, so that I can talk to my constituents about what exactly Crossroads is recommending at this time. I understand it's less dense according to the notes, but I'll ask one of the three of you who are there to be more specific and let me know what exactly is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Doug, someone on Zoom?
I have Nadia here, 3 minutes.
Do you have please inform us of
please
your
state
last
your
name.
first and last
camera.
name.
My
Nadia
camera.
Hussein, how are you?
Hi, Nadia Hussein. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First of all, let me say thank you to Councilwoman Belcher for introducing this resolution. Black history is not just simply belonging to our African-American population, but it belongs to everyone. It's everyone's history. Because if it were not for the historic Black struggle and the civil rights movements, no one currently sitting on the board would be there right now. Sitting on the council, I apologize, would be there right now. Similarly for our Board of Education. None except one would qualify to be on the Board of Education. It was just 58 years ago that Voting Rights Act was signed that allowed any kind of discriminatory voting practices. 58 years is not that long ago. Many of us living in Teaneck are beneficiaries of the Black community's unending fight during that civil rights movement. My Black brothers and sisters were beaten, lynched, hosed, and many other unspeakable acts to pressure them to be silent and to stop their protests for justice. This, for me, is just a reminder that the path to justice can sometimes be uncomfortable, if not a dangerous one. Thank you, Ms. Belcher, for also including that our government, advisory, and statutory boards should be diverse and inclusive of all of our residents. Teaneck is a multicultural, multiracial town, and our government should be reflective of such. Lastly, let me add this. Black history is an integral part of my history and my family's history and everyone's history. And I will forever be grateful to those who gave up so much so now we can all be seen as equal. Lastly, let me address a question that was asked about voter suppression. Many of us do consider that when the council election was held in May, this was a form of voter suppression, as really only a few people knew about the council election. And as a result, only some town residents voted. Now that council election is in November, more of the town can vote in the elections and more of us can have a say on who we choose to govern Teaneck. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Hussein. Mr. Rose.
Thank you. Howard Rose, Teaneck resident. Councilmember Belcher, thank you for your statement and the ordinance. Black history is American history, and it's an acknowledgement. We've come a long way, and there's so much more that has to be done. Regarding Glenda Crockett, it sort of reminds me of the stamps that we issue nowadays, forever stamps. Glenda's been with us for a long time, but as the years go by, she increases in value, just like a forever stamp. She's done a lot, more than just bowling, which she's very well noted for. Statement was read by, I believe his name is Mr. Gross, regarding Palmer Avenue, and I hope that it leads to a much more rigorous enforcement of existing laws that are meant to protect people in the township. Housing. It's my understanding that to give residents better access to the housing that's being built, we need a Teaneck Housing Authority that would enable us better. So correct me if that's wrong, and if it's correct, explain where we're at in that, why we're not there yet, and what we're doing to get to that point in time. There's also discussion regarding housing on current properties, adding to buildings that are there already. Now, we're already able to add to existing buildings in attics and basements to add to housing. And I'm concerned in terms of what the impact might be if we have separate buildings on current property added. Are we going to be changing the laws regarding permeable ground cover and adding to non-permeable areas? Are we going to be changing the boundary line of the property and its proximity to a building and making that less of a distance? I don't want to see Teaneck become a squatter town or look like a shanty town. And how many people does this enable? Because that's the term that was used in the past to do this. How many people can make use of it? On a property that's 60 feet by 90 feet, is there really space to put another building? So how many properties in Township, has a survey been done? How many properties, based upon whatever the criteria is, will it impact? And of those that it impacts, how many people want to do that? How many people who want to do that can afford that? So what's really the net effect and the approximate number of the impact of this situation if it's determined to go forward with it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Doug, someone on Zoom?
We have Cheryl Hall. Please unmute.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, esteemed members of our council and all of the public that are listening in or in person tonight. I want to really express my gratitude to Councilwoman Denise Belcher and Danielle G for both of your resolutions tonight. I believe that the people of Teaneck deserve an accounting. And also, I'd like to thank those that asked questions about Councilwoman Belcher's resolution, because that gives me an opportunity to be useful. Voter suppression is rampant right now, not just in the past, but right now, as of this past November, throughout the United States. African Americans that are elderly are not allowed to sit down, are being forced to wait on long lines, and that's happening throughout the country. While I've always had a positive experience here in Teaneck, it is very meaningful to all Teaneck residents, and certainly to your Black and African American residents, to affirm or to hear that affirmation that you value our lives and our residency as citizens. So it's very important. And I don't know if you realize or have heard this, but the King family of Martin Luther King and also the NAACP since 2022 has asked everyone to make voting rights and fighting voter suppression their primary focus. So yes, there are things going on right now and today, and I really appreciate. And I also have full confidence that this will be voted in, hopefully unanimously. I also wanted to ask a question of our town manager, and maybe he can give us 2 minutes of his time to explain why he thinks the CERT empathy training is vital right now for the Township of Teaneck. I know, Dean, you have worked in service of this township since the early 1980s in law enforcement. I don't know of any other expert that would be able to tell us right now better why we need help in communicating with each other. I know it won't work for everyone, but why not invest the time in people that are willing to help each other and to be helpful, which the advisory board and community relations is definitely up for that task right now. Thank you for your time and your presence.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Thank you, Cheryl. Ms. Horowitz?
Good evening, Council, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be heard tonight. My name is Emma Horowitz, and I'm a Teaneck resident. I apologize that due to the extreme parenting required of me today due to the snow day, I was not able to review the agenda in the detail I normally would, and I didn't read the resolution, but I understand that there are issues of voter suppression referenced in it, and I want you to know that I personally don't take the right to vote as a woman or as a citizen of the United States for granted, and I hope that no one else would ever feel like that was something that they couldn't do here in America. So voter suppression is a terrible thing, and I hope it's never an issue here in Teaneck. And I thank you for the resolution, assuming that that's what it addressed. And again, I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to read it, but thank you, Ms. Belcher. I also wanted to say that last week I had the opportunity to attend the Youth Advisory Board Career Night, and I want to compliment everyone who was involved in arranging it. The students who ran it did a beautiful job, and I particularly commend the student president, Caitlin, for her efforts. Although I'm probably past the point of choosing a career, although you never know, I personally learned so much, and I know that my children did too. I hope we'll have the opportunity to have other similar events where we can hear from the wonderful people who live here on a variety of different topics. We all have so much to learn from each other. I'm also involved with the Patriotic Observance Advisory Board, and although it's only February and there's snow on the ground, I am already anticipating the 4th of July parade and the better weather that it will bring. Our parade has been a source of pride for our town for many years, and I'm very excited to be involved in helping it grow and become even more inclusive and exciting than it already is. I hope the town will please stay tuned for opportunities for the public to get involved and share ideas so that we can celebrate this wonderful country that we all cherish. Finally, I know that everyone on council and our wonderful township manager are aware of the tragedy that took place on Palmer Avenue on January 25th. In a reckless driving incident, a young mother lost her life and a family will never be the same. I know many people have spoken or will speak and ask for traffic calming measures on Palmer Avenue, and I join them in that request. I know that there are professionals whom the town can hire to engage in traffic studies, and I also know that speed bumps are not favored, but there has to be something that we can do, perhaps the insertion of white stripes onto either side of Palmer Avenue to create the illusion of a narrower street. This is the second serious accident on Palmer Avenue in recent months, and the footage that I saw of the first one was frankly terrifying. There are many children whose bus stops are up and down Palmer Avenue, and both accidents have been at 8 o'clock in the morning, a time when many buses pick up. Not only that, people walk their dogs and have a sense of safety on Palmer because it's not a heavily trafficked area, but lately it's proven to be lethal. In fact, I believe it's also time for us to turn our attention to the entire area between DeGraw and Route 4. Too many cars use it as a speedway between routes 4 and 80, and I have noted problems on Queen Anne Road in the past. Councilwoman Goldberg was instrumental in getting structures placed in the pedestrian walkway by Vandalinda Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Doug, someone on Zoom?
I have Paula Rogovan, 3 minutes.
Yeah. Hi, I strongly support the voting rights resolution introduced by Councilwoman Belcher. Thank you for introducing that. It's so important for Teaneck to reaffirm the need to support voting rights and representation, both in Teaneck and throughout the United States. On another topic, by October 17th of this year, more than 2,000 people in Israel and over 2,000 people in Gaza had already been killed. Despite much division among residents, the council passed a resolution supporting the policies of the Israeli government. Concerns of people about the lives of civilians in Gaza were ignored. Those of us holding a peace vigil on the town green in advance of the October 17th meeting were condemned by some and told it was too soon to vigil for a peaceful solution. I'm worried because there's been so much antagonism against students and adults who have called for ceasefire or for support of Palestinians. Now, 30,000 people, nearly 30,000 people have been killed in Gaza. More than 11,000 of them are children. Many thousands are suffering serious injuries and suffering from starvation, dehydration, and disease, as well as displacement from their homes. For me personally, it breaks my heart when I think about all of the death and destruction in Israel and Gaza. Council members and other residents who are quick to criticize or even condemn the students for their walkout or the recent march after school, I plead with you to please step back and take time to think about the students who have chosen to speak out in different ways. People have expressed horror at the killings and kidnappings of Israelis, but I plead with everyone to consider the feelings of students and others like myself who also feel horror with the killings of thousands of people in Gaza. During the Vietnam War, when I was in college, many thousands of us demonstrated, held sit-ins and walkouts. Thousands of us shut down our schools for a week to condemn the bombing of Cambodia by US troops. Like at other schools around the country, we even held a teach-in for a whole week at Bank Street College of Education during that bombing. Recently, there have been school walkouts and student-led marches and sit-ins. Students at Brown University just held a 6-day hunger strike to call for divestment from companies producing weapons of war. This is part of a democratic tradition and part of making good trouble. I've been to the student dialogues at Ethical Culture, Teaneck High School, and I have great admiration for the students of all backgrounds who participated in these dialogues. I hope that council members and others will listen and take the lead from our students.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Ms. Rogovan. Thank you. Someone in chambers? Sir?
Hello, Amrit Ramzatan, Teaneck resident. I'm here again requesting an update to the Township Code, Section 3329, fences and retaining walls for corner lots. To Mr. Schwartz, I did hear you last time, but I don't think a variance solves it. A variance is a one-time basis item that's granted to me, but it affects all corner lots equally and would still be in the code. The only way to clean this up is a general code update to Section 3329. And again, that's why I'm appealing to the council. I think as a township, we can all agree to a resident's right to privacy and privacy in one's backyard. The current code is just written poorly and being enforced too aggressively. There's no real justification for having a 75-foot section of fence be 50% open, allowing an invasion of privacy other than a technicality in the current code. The code's intent was to allow a resident privacy in their backyard with a 6-foot-high side yard fence. This has been costing residents of Teaneck quite a bit of money for decades. Between requesting variances and extra steps to fill in the gaps in the fence, it doesn't make sense to continue with the current writing. The code's not monolithic and updates can be made. I think it's very logical and fundamentally a popular stance to get behind. Right to privacy and saving residents money. I'm sure this isn't the only item in the township code that needs updating, but this is something that can be done now to ensure all residents have a right to privacy in their backyards. I've done the legwork and analyzed other townships in Bergen, and I have a few suggestions to update the code that doesn't require a full rewrite. Something along the lines of, for the purposes of this particular subsection 3329 only, the front yard shall be defined as that yard in which the front door and or the front of the house is located. This would close any illogical enforcement and leave all safety tenets in place, mainly the sightline requirements. Hopefully I can work with the council to get this updated before it affects other residents in the future. It's a very simple and straightforward item, and past councils may have overlooked it. Nothing being proposed is controversial, and it should be easy to support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hamrit. Doug, someone on Zoom?
I have John Moscow here. Please unmute.
Good evening. My name is John Moscow. I also want to thank Councilmember Belcher for her resolution. I am a Teaneck resident of 32 years, a Jew, and a member of Northern New Jersey Jewish Voice for Peace, JVP. I'm speaking on my own behalf tonight. Teaneck Township Council member Hillary Goldberg is spreading slanderous misinformation and disinformation about JVP. People should check
The
out.
camera's not on, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Moscow, if you're able to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Mr. Moscow. Please continue.
Yes. People should check out our chapter website and National JVP's website to get accurate information. Councilmember Goldberg is deliberately spreading hatred, heightening tension in the town rather than helping to build dialogue. Last Tuesday, high school students held a virtual panel that exemplified what the Township Council should be doing, but isn't. We noticed that Councilmember Goldberg attempted to derail the panel. Subsequently, she accused students of being anti-Semitic, despite the students being very clear that they were not using the phrase "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" with any anti-Semitic meaning. The council passed Councilmember Goldberg's one-sided resolution that expressed concern for Israeli lives and solidarity with Israel's extreme right-wing government, but indicated no concern at all for the countless Palestinian lives lost. This resolution was morally obtuse and a betrayal of everything Teaneck claims to stand for. Many municipalities and labor unions have called for a ceasefire to stop the genocide in Gaza and also an end to the pogroms on the West Bank. As Jews, we should not be doing pogroms, and also allow for the return of the hostages. Why hasn't the Teaneck Township Council joined in? Are you waiting, as the world did during the Shoah, the Holocaust, only to express regret later? As Jews, we say that never again means never again for anyone. As Jews, we demand that the Township Council stand up for human lives and human decency. Please disown Councilmember Hillary Goldberg's hatred. Please support Teaneck students and follow their example of dignified discourse. And please pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire now before more people die. Thank you.
Someone in chambers want to speak? Mr. Berliner.
Avi Berliner, Teaneck resident. Cheryl, you are always welcome. Thanks to the DPW and emergency services for keeping us safe, preparing for and cleaning up during and after the storm. With Valentine's Day tomorrow, let me also put into the public record, thank you to my wife for letting me be involved and come out. Love you, Doug. I expect to see that in your notes. I need the proof. Let me first start with a shout out to the Hawthorne 4th grade PTA fundraiser. As was shared by Trustee Ed Hott, the recent Board of Education workshop, the 4th grade PTA is hosting a Krispy Kreme fundraiser. I would imagine that everyone's participation would be welcome. I purchased my dozen and I ask you to join me in this worthwhile cause. I strongly support the naming of Windsor Road for Rabbi Louis Siegel and urge you to as well, as those of us in attendance at the Township's MLK celebration hosted at Temple Emeth were reminded by Rabbi Serbu. Rabbi Siegel was a scholar and leader who left an indelible impact, not only on Teaneck, but also far beyond our borders. He was a religious leader who spearheaded the creation of the Teaneck Clergy Council, pushed to provide land for the Teaneck Mikvah, marched with civil rights leaders, and helped Teaneck cope and heal after the Philip Hanel tragedy. He is missed by the community, and we, Teaneck, need this to not only remember him, but what he stood for. Ensure that his legacy lives on, no matter your race, religion, color, or creed. We owe a debt of gratitude, and this is a wonderful and lasting memorial. Yehi zichro baruch, may his memory be a blessing. Thank you, Mr. Manager and Council, for moving forward a number of parks-related programs, including the OSRP and Green Acres items for Phelps Park and Sagamore Park. And thank you also for the responsible budgeting and fiscal management of this town. The Moody's report is great news and helps to lower our cost of capital to continue municipal borrowing for development at advantageous rates. Before moving on, I would like to take the time to thank and apologize to our resident journalist, Bill Orr, for how he was treated at an event last Friday. Your discomfort and being made to feel unwelcome by parent agitators is our own discomfort and feeling of distress. This is not who we are. This is not Teaneck. Thank you again for your straightforward and honest reporting. What are we doing here, and what is going on here, and what are we doing? Shame on you, shame on us, shame on all of us. How did we, the adults in the room, allow things to escalate and get so out of hand? How do we, the adults in the room, allow things to stay so out of hand? Because of the sensitivities, I will not go into details, but what happened at last week's PPRAB meeting was unacceptable and disgraceful, both in front of adults, but even more so in front of children. Making a statement is one thing. Hiding behind a camera and pulling a disgusting stunt in front of children is vile and abhorrent. I hope whoever that was is identified and has the courage to make a public apology to the children who are innocently joining to present their research for a new skate park, the board members who are trying to conduct township business, township employees, and other individuals who participated in the advisory board meeting, and all of the citizens of Teaneck. We want and deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berliner. On Zoom.
I have Natalie Addison. Please unmute. And I just want to give a reminder to our friends on Zoom that council will not be calling on you if you do not have your first name, last name listed in your name title on Zoom. Natalie, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. This is not Natalie. This is Raymond Addison.
Thank you, Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
How are you? First of all, thank you, Councilman, for coming out in this great weather tonight. And thank you to the Township Manager for making sure that all the streets are plowed, that you were able to make it and we are able to get where we need to go. I'm calling to support the resolution that was presented by Councilwoman Belcher and had to be affirmed by Deputy Mayor G. I think it's a great resolution. Yes, this is Black History Month, but in my eyes, every month is Black History Month, only because it was designated that February is Black History Month. It doesn't mean that we have to live in that realm. I'm saddened though, because we take 10 steps forward and 100 steps backwards, where one has to identify and quibble over words that's in a resolution that maybe it's misunderstood, but maybe it's a little bit sensitive that we should try to understand each other's culture by doing so. There is a good movie out called Origin that I think it would be a good field trip for all of the council people to maybe see and view. And we can get a better understanding on how we should live together and where we are in this world. Because when the bottom line is, we're all human beings, we all bleed the same blood. So we need to be a little bit more sensitive to each other and not quibble over words and who should rewrite words and rewrite resolutions. Thank you. Also, I think it's a good time now to talk about or consider hiring a compliance officer. We talk about everything else. We talk about chickens. We talk about everything. Compliance officer, I think, would benefit the town in more ways than one. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening. Be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Addison. Someone in chambers? Mr. Kaplan?
Oh my God.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keith Kaplan, Teaneck.
For a moment, I wanted to reflect on the Black History Month resolution. I don't think anybody can realistically doubt that voter suppression exists in new and inventive ways anywhere in this country. Considering how our own district was somewhat gerrymandered to ensure a certain representation, I hope council does take into account, even when it results in something we favor, that we would be against such things. The second point I want to make about it is we have a tremendous amount of historical events and things reflective from our community. I mean, right off the top, you have the first to voluntarily integrate our schools. We have the first for Black mayors and deputy mayors, judges, and personnel from our township. Ms. Lacey, a living, embodiment. We just named a school after her. I have no objection to this resolution. For sure, we should do it. But I think that the comment that we should have another one to at least embody some of the living history we have here might be a good thing to move forward, because Black History Month is everyone's history. Regarding the traffic issues, I saw a vehicle leave Lowell Street by my house, hit a tree, and flip over on its top with a pregnant woman inside it. The problem of traffic is it's ever expanding. Part of the issue is not all traffic accidents are the same. Some are definitely by the person in the car, and those certainly need to be dealt with through education and various methods. But others are because of design of roadway, hazards, and various issues. The Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices lists many traffic control measures that can help slow down cars, that can help with safety on our streets. The problem is these aren't things that are out of the box, just the go-to for a lot of people. And doing it the way we've done it is sort of the way government typically functions. So if you want the good responses, if you want, and some of these are cheaper than what we actually do, they're cheaper than putting physical structures in. You need to get experts in the field. I believe, and the manager can take this into account, when people were complaining about Beverly Road and Sussex and Garrison and all the accidents, cars literally landing on people's houses, we put lines on the road, and some people scoffed. They said this will never work. And it turns out that making the roadway narrower causes people to go slower. And the people that were complaining almost daily suddenly stopped. I'm happy to help contribute. I'm by no means an expert, but I have worked with them. But what we really need is to have experts take that into account. And with a couple seconds left, I want to make sure there's a lot of people that have a lot of non-TNEC topics they're focused on at these meetings. I'd like to see if we can return TNEC meetings to TNEC residents.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Doug, someone on Zoom? And friendly reminder, please list your first name and last name and turn on your camera if you can.
Eliza Leon. Eliza Leon. Please unmute. Hi. 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm Eliza Leon, TNEC resident for a really long time. I grew up here, and I raised my kids here now. So I wanted to just bring up two things. The first is I really agree with making the street safer. A while ago, I had called in and commented on the intersection between Red and Grayson, and it was found that that wasn't an issue. Again, I live right near TNEC High School. There are a lot of kids that are walking the streets all the time, and I see so many almost accidents. It like builds my blood pressure up. So anything we can do, whether it's yield signs, stop signs, just to put them up to just slow people down, because people are always rushing together, whether it's TNEC Road or it's Queen Anne Road or Palisades. They're always trying to get somewhere quick. I'm also wondering, and I grew up in TNEC, so I actually know that some places in TNEC don't have sidewalks. So there is kind of this community of street walkers because there are no sidewalks to walk on. But I'm especially seeing this as being an issue by the high school. High schoolers love to walk on the street right in the middle. And people are also walking on the streets all the time. I am probably one of them sometimes if I have a big stroller, but to kind of maybe have a campaign to have people walk on the sidewalks, or maybe make some sidewalks bigger if they're not big enough to hold the people that need to walk there. I don't know, just get people off the streets when they're walking would also be good in making our streets safer. And last, I do want to thank the town manager. I live on Werner Place, as well as Jesse Leon. And thank you for the, filling those potholes. But I also do want to mention the top of our street is not paved. I don't really understand the logic behind that. It kind of just like stops somewhere on the top. And then the street actually, it branches out two ways. One is to a closed off section of like a used to be road, and the other one goes to somebody's driveway. It's not paved, and I really don't understand why it's not. And I would ask if we could just pave it, just make it a regular street. Cars are always making U-turns in that area. It would be good for not only the street, but also cars. I've personally popped one of my tires once because it's just rocks and gravel and whatnot up there. So that is all for me. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Leon. Mr. Sohn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. I want to echo so many of the remarks that are being stated about traffic safety. This is something that I've seen for many, many years, both before, during, and after my council service. The speed limit signs are again, treated as basically recommendations, not rules or laws. Unfortunately, the wider the street, the more likely you are to feel that you should be or can be driving faster. Many people, as Ms. Horowitz pointed out, do use many of those long, wide streets, especially those streets south of Cedar Lane, as speedways to get from one place to another, avoiding the major roads that have those stoplights where you actually have to stop. Again, in many of those streets, traffic calming measures are appropriate and I think would be effective. It's not the stop signs. The stop signs, as we have seen, are just not working and are not working effectively. Some of those measures that have been used in some other streets and have been used effectively include putting striping to make the street look narrower, but many of those streets would genuinely benefit from speed humps. I know that there have been some issues with the recommendations of the manual and uniform traffic control devices and those recommendations, but when I see a speed hump, when other drivers see a speed hump, you slow down because you pretty much have to slow down. And I think it's one of the most effective measures in order to encourage people to slow down. I've seen the video of the Holy Name vehicle rolling over. It was horrific to imagine the amount of force that would be necessary in an impact. I did not see any video, and I would hope not to see video of the more recent incident where the Teaneck resident was killed. But to even try to imagine how much force was necessary and how fast that other vehicle was going is horrific. I can't even imagine all of the accidents that have almost happened, the near misses. And I think taking those steps to implement traffic calming measures on those kinds of streets is something that is an actual measure that can really bring genuine safety to our residents, to the people who are passing by, to those people who are just minding their own business and crossing through the streets. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but in identifying those streets and going through those and making sure that we have those measures that can be implemented at relatively low cost, that can be done, that will get people to slow down, is something that will genuinely improve the quality of life. And again, hopefully, again, in this most tragic incident, could have saved a life if they'd only been implemented. And I encourage this council, in looking ahead in its budget for this forthcoming year, to try to implement those kinds of things and include those things in the budget to ensure that all residents are kept safe here in this township. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Doug, someone on Zoom?
Celine Lewis, please unmute whenever you're ready.
Hi, do I need my camera on?
Up to you. We know what you look like.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Oh,
Here I am. All right. Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank Councilwoman Belcher and Deputy Mayor G for bringing forth the resolution in honor of Black History Month. Black history is American history, and I'm so happy and makes me very proud that it's being brought to the table in my hometown of Teaneck. Okay. Number two. I heard there was a skate park, and I even heard there was chickens. So let's bring these little libraries to the parks. This has been maybe my third or fourth time that I have introduced little libraries for our beautiful parks in Teaneck. If you know me, you know that I love reading. Books are very inclusive, they're freeing, they're open minds, they save lives, and we can make this a town that promotes literacy. We could do this together. And so, like I said, this is the third and fourth time that I've come to a council meeting and I asked for the little libraries in Teaneck. I did it with the last administration. And so I'm doing it with this council right here as well. Hit me up if you want to know more about it, but let's make this happen. 3. On Teaneck Road, I was walking on Teaneck Road, going to the store. I noticed outside of some businesses, it is filthy. There is garbage on the ground, a lot of it. And I want to know what's being done to make sure these businesses are keeping up with the cleanliness of our town. I don't see it everywhere, but I do see it in particular on Teaneck Road. Who's talking to the business owners? Are there fines or something? But we need to keep all of our town beautiful and clean. So I actually want to know what's being done about that. I actually have a 1 minute and 19 seconds. So again, I'm going to go back to the little libraries. I don't know if I need to write another email. And if I do, I will send an email to the council to speak about that. And lastly, I want to bring up, we are in the plannings to do something for Juneteenth again, and I'll be writing a letter to the council discussing the plans for Juneteenth. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Celine. Sir?
How you doing? Yusuf Awadullah, Teaneck resident. I'm here today to seek clarification on the attribution of inflammatory statements made about a community member in the last meeting. Why was the phrase blow up used in reference to a citizen expressing their views? I watched the meeting and didn't hear anyone mention any blowing up of the town. Additionally, I was present at the meeting, sitting right there, and at no point did I hear anyone mention blowing anything up. One member of the council made the accusation, and the another one affirmed hearing it. The community member was mentioned by name, putting her safety at risk. Maybe I'm missing something. Was this an attempt at intimidation to keep us silent, to prevent people from talking at these meetings? I don't know. You got to remember that these meetings are recorded and they can be played back, which it was, and at no point did I hear any of these statements. My question is, will there be an apology for any misunderstanding? Moving on. I just want to mention that it's vital for community members, council members, to embrace diverse perspectives. It's very disappointing to witness adults intimidating children who are advocating for the basic human rights of Palestinians. How can we have council members representing us who are unable to hear different perspectives and walk out of council meetings? This is in reference to one of the councilmen walking out during one of the speakers. While walking out, they stated, "Call me back when he's done." How are we unable to listen to other people's perspectives without showing emotion? Councilwoman Belcher and Gee, thank you for giving me a glimmer of hope for the town, the future of Teaneck. Thank you.
Someone on Zoom, Doug?
I have Sherry Ann. Please state your name for the record. Unmute whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Good evening. It's Sherry Ann Eid, lifelong Teaneck resident. I don't want to have my camera on. I do not want to have my camera on. I have my young son with me, and I'd like him to not be on this. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Belcher for introducing the voter suppression resolution. Black History Month, as everyone has stated, is American history. If it weren't for the sacrifices of those involved in the civil rights movement, my parents would not have been able to move to this country. Our community owes a tremendous amount to the African American community for their sacrifices. I also would like to echo everyone else who has made statements about the road safety in this town. I have also witnessed that I've also witnessed many near accidents daily. So whatever we can do to make this town safer for us would be great. I'm calling also to question why our town is still vilifying those of us who are calling for the indiscriminate violence being hurled at Palestinians to end. Why are we vilifying students? Why are we intimidating students? Why are we following them when they're exercising their right of freedom of speech, their right to assemble? Why are we taking photos of them? Not journalists, regular people taking photos of these children. These kids need to be kept safe, not exploited by us. They protest to give a voice to the voiceless. They are the voice of 1.5 million people who are being ignored by the world. And if we still don't understand this, we desperately need some bias training, some implicit bias training. The start of tonight's meeting was enough evidence for us to see that we really don't understand when we're being biased against people of color and marginalized communities. We can no longer, as a town, rest on the fact that we were the first to integrate schools, that we are so progressive. We can no longer rest to that. We have to be in the present. We'll just continue to divide this town if we just ignore and suppress our voices. And lastly, the point of keeping these meetings about TNEC issues, the person who made that comment last meeting called women who are Muslim jihadi Janes. Now, what is being done to make sure that I am safe? What is being done to make sure that women who wear the hijab are safe? I've not heard one thing from the council about what can be done to make sure that we are safe in this town. Thank you.
Anyone in chambers want to speak? No? Doug? Someone on Zoom?
Michael Klatsky. Bring in Michael Klatsky, please unmute. And just want to remind our friends on Zoom to please put your name, first name, last name on Zoom to be called on. Thank you.
The floor is yours, Mr. Klatsky.
There's a reason why. Yes, thank you.
You're muted, Mike.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Doug?
sir, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Thank you very much. Good evening, council. Good evening, everyone. Today, I'd like to speak about, echo some of the other residents of the town who've spoken very passionately about traffic safety and the ability to walk comfortably in our town without fearing when they cross the street, walk down the street, and so on. Many of the other speakers who have touched on this topic, they've made some really good points. I agree with all of them. I think you should take all of them seriously. I want to share some of my own insights on the current situation. I think that for many years, we've dealt with a lot of streets, and traffic basically had a pattern where you had these peak hours in the morning, right? We call them rush hour in the morning. You had rush hour in the evening. And we ended up with the situation where every intersection was overwhelmed with traffic during those periods of time. And, you go through those intersections very slowly. Let's say you're at Cedar Lane and Queen Anne Road and so on, Cedar Lane and Garrison, wherever you are. It doesn't matter exactly where you are, right? Those are the times of the day when traffic comes to a crawl. So you don't really encounter a super dangerous situation because you're going really slowly. You're cautious. There's lots of stuff happening. Since the pandemic, so many people have started working from home or worked hybrid. And what has happened is that we don't really see the same rush hour anymore. If we reached 110% capacity at 8 a.m., we don't see that. Right now, we're hitting 70% capacity at 8 a.m. But instead of going to, say, 10% capacity at 11, we're now seeing 40% capacity all day long. We're now seeing people who are now encountering dangerous situations with low volumes of traffic, which means that they're not approaching that intersection at a slow speed anymore. They're coming through full speed. There's no traffic, or there's light traffic, But there's also somebody who wants to walk the dog. There's a kid who wants to cross the street. There's a kid being dropped off by a school bus. There's a person doing this. All these people doing things when they're not anticipating each other. And can we solve that through enforcement? We can't. We have to hire another 10,000 police officers to do that. We can solve this through maybe through the car manufacturers a little bit more, but in TNEC, we're not going to do that. We don't really have that power. I think what we do, what is in our purview and what we can do is that we can focus on making our corridors safer streets. We can make those encounters where, a driver approaches an intersection. We can make it easier for them to see, easier for them to have a predictable experience, to see who's walking there. When a person wants to go approach a crosswalk and they find that cars just don't stop for them, maybe sometimes they can't see them. There are ways, there's a whole toolbox. The New Jersey DOT has a whole complete streets manual. It's written by one of the firms that's located not far from here in Parsippany. We can hire them to get it done, to study the town, do a small study for safe streets. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Klatsky. Mr. Schwartz?
Yeah, sorry. I know we're about close to about 1 hour on good and welfare. If
Yes, sir. It's been an hour.
I'd like to make a motion. 18, yeah. So I'd like to make a motion that we end good and welfare, or if you want to extend it by a few minutes, but we have quite a bit of resolutions that are important for us to discuss.
Yeah, we have a busy consent agenda.
I'll second.
That was a first from council.
Sorry. The motion was to terminate good and welfare because it's been an hour already.
So we had a first from Councilman Schwartz, second from Councilwoman Oregon regarding closing good and welfare right now at an hour. Councilman Schwartz. Yeah. Councilwoman Belcher.
No, I'd like to hear from everyone.
Councilman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Oregon.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
No, if we do this, if it's an hour every month, that means only 20 people get to speak. I just don't think that's enough time.
We're in the middle of a roll call, but legally we're only required to do 1 hour at least.
20 is not enough, so no.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
Yes, good and welfare closed.
All right, Mr. Schwartz, would you like to start us off, sir?
Yes, thank you very much. And just our meetings are more than a month, so it's not 20 people every month. I don't know what the Board of Ed does, but there's quite a bit. People know how to reach us as well, and we'd love to hear from everyone. I must have spoken to probably 50 or 60 different residents today between text, email, Facebook Messenger. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Belcher, for bringing forth the resolution. I thought it was important for me to ask these questions, especially where I was completely confused and where I thought it was voter suppression. There will never be a time where a resolution is just put on an agenda and I simply raise my hands unless I'm the one that actually put it on the agenda. So I think questions are healthy, they're, especially as long as they're done in a respectful manner. And I appreciate Cheryl Hall's comments on that as well. As it relates to the variance in the lots, I think you were starting to talk about some very good points. I'd appreciate if you could reach out to me. My email is right on the website, and if you can send me that information, and we can look to see how we can carry that forward and see if those changes are indeed plausible. Of course, those will be run by the building department, who are professionals, not myself specifically, because I'm not a professional or engineer. And one thing I liked that we started talking in the last 2 years about speed humps and bumps. We put a few sample ones in, but we didn't have enough snow to gauge if it affected the snow pickup. And Mr. Manager, if you can just reach out to DPW, especially on Columbus and Columbus and on Tryon, to see how the snow pickup went, the snow plow. I sure will. Went. Sorry. Yeah, see how that goes, because that was one thing we missed last winter from our test. Thank you very much, everyone, and I yield the rest of my time.
Ms. Belcher.
Okay, first off, I'd like to congratulate our recreational director, Ms. Glinda Crockett, on her recognition. Certainly, my family has been a beneficiary of her service to our community. I raised my 2 daughters coming through the rec center, and we just had such a great time, and there's no better person to be receiving this award. I'd like to also just basically send my prayers to the family that were impacted by the accident on Palmer. I absolutely feel that our township should do everything possible to control traffic If it means a speed bump along Palmer, let's do it. Let's figure it out, because that's just horrific to have had that happen, you know, in our community. I want to also echo Mrs. Horowitz's comment about the Student Career Day. I wasn't able to make that event. However, I appreciate our students because they truly are our leaders. They are our future. I am just so totally impressed with our young people by them taking the leadership and initiative to come together and to try to figure out tough questions. And they should be applauded for all of their efforts. And I will always be a champion of our young people because I believe they lead the way as it pertains to what they're doing, as opposed to oftentimes what adults are doing. I want to thank former Councilwoman Javon Rice for calling in, and Cheryl Hall, and Mr. Addison, because truly, I think we all agree that Black history is American history. It's so vitally important. I think about that in light of Rabbi Siegel, who we are looking to recognize in terms of a street naming. And I liked one thing I read in his bio that I thought was very important is that he was a rabbi for social justice, and that he believed in the integration of our schools, and he believed in working with people, and he believed that there was an intersectionality between people getting along and people working together. And I think that we can learn a lot from his bio, and I'm certainly excited that we are recognizing him. I think that is important because I think that during that time, he probably believed what Dr. King believed. I believe he probably, certainly just from his bio, indicates that he believed in so many things that African Americans believed in. So I'm super excited about my colleagues recognizing this, the resolution in honor of Black history. I think it's timely. I think it's important. I think it shows that we are collectively recognizing that we live in a democracy and that voting rights is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Belcher. Ms. Organ?
I look forward to supporting Councilwoman Belcher's resolution. I too believe in free voting rights for everybody and no voter suppression. Thank you for educating me. I am in agreement with everybody who spoke about Ms. Friesen and the traffic accident. I think it hits so close to home for all of us because any one of us could have been driving our children to school that morning and never to see them again. I think the scariest time in a parent's life is when you get behind the wheel with your child and you teach them how to drive, and then they ask you for the keys to move on by themselves, and then to hear that they've done something irresponsible weighs on you forever. I am so inspired to see how many people in the community donated money towards funeral expenses and food for the family, and how many people donated anonymously on the site, and how people from all over the community donated money to help them and embrace them. And if there's anything that we can ever do to help the family, I hope they'll feel free to reach out. I'm super excited about the skate park. I love seeing civics in action from children. We saw it with the AED defibrillators with the Youth Advisory Board. I hope that we can find something with this, and also some funding opportunities if our youth would like to go look at them. I wish to congratulate Glenna on her award and thank her for everything that she does for us every day. I'm a huge fan. I'd like to thank the police department in town for helping us and keeping us safe always, and the DPW for all their work today. Ms. Lewis, the first time you brought up the little libraries, I offered to donate one, and I'm so happy to sponsor one. If you could reach out to me, I think it's a great idea, and I love to read. And intimidation is something that makes people feel unsafe. It could be posting their picture on social media, on Instagram. It could be saying things about them that their children read. It could be putting their face on the side of a boxcar, a box truck. It could be telling people that their town is not going to be able to rest going forward. So there are many different forms of intimidation. I do intimidate easily, but part of the job. That's it. Have a good night, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Organ. Ms. Goldberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I know Mr. Batsky is not here, but I wanted to follow up on something from last meeting. I did watch Unstoppable. It's on Tubi for free if anyone is looking for it. At the recommendation of Mr. Batsky, and also he loaned me a very interesting book about the train and oil industry called Bomb Train. And I look forward to exploring the CSX issue. It's an important issue, but I recognize that we as a municipality are limited in what we can do. But I am committed to exploring to see what our options are. Thank you, Mr. Gross, Ms. Horowitz, Mr. Klatsky, and to so many others who spoke regarding the tragedy on Palmer. I thank you all for bringing this to our attention. I've received numerous phone calls. Streets like Palmer are really wide, and some of our widest streets turn into speedways. I'm not sure what options we can, but I really hope that we can consider looking at calming measures on these kinds of streets. And maybe, Mr. Manager, next meeting, you can come back with some recommendations for safety improvements, starting with Palmer Avenue. Jesse, Leon, thank you so much for talking about chickens. I really miss chickens. As you know, I fully support chickens, and I would support it if it were brought forward again. Teresa, thank you. Sammy and Yonatan have been amazing and have really done an amazing job to engage and understand the process, and really should be so proud of themselves. And I am committed to supporting their skate park idea. And this is really what our town is about. So Yashar Koach. Ron, for clarity, the minutes from the last meetings are in the agenda packet, but I will clarify. The developer did come back and say that they would come back, quote, with density decreased designs based on the public meetings, with significant reductions in setbacks for Beverly Road and a decreased floor for American Legion, more green space, and no charge for public parking throughout. However, they have not yet presented a new design, so no one has seen it yet. There will be more public meetings, absolutely, and when they have a design to present it, it will absolutely be presented. I apologize for any confusion. Anti-Semitism is at an all-time high in this world, and the life experience of Jews is very consistent that when Israel defends herself, Jews are attacked globally. The definition of anti-Semitism from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which has been adopted by more than 1,000 global entities all over the world, and in the United States, 30 states have adopted it, says, part of their definition, quote, holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the state of Israel is anti-Semitism. Normalizing anti-Semitism is incredibly dangerous and puts Jews' lives in danger. When it's normalized and accepted, and when it comes from your friends, people you welcomed into your home, to have kids play together, to cook with, friends, chaverim, it's an act of betrayal worse than any pain I have ever experienced. I will never stay quiet in the face of anti-Semitism, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And I look forward to the day when I see on the news that all 134 remaining hostages are on Israeli soil. Bring them home.
Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Ms. G?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to send my deepest condolences to the Bryson Brown family. Diamond Bryson was the name of the woman who unfortunately passed away with that accident on Palmer Avenue. I wholeheartedly agree with all the suggestions we heard today in terms of investigating ways to make our streets safer. I also think we should look at, I understand that the drivers of the vehicle who ran through the stop signs were 18 years old. They were high school students in Bogota. I think there's an opportunity to work with the Board of Ed here in Teaneck and maybe partner with other schools to talk about safety for new learners. It is really, really sad that this happened in Teaneck, and I never want to see it happen again. Also want to congratulate Glenna Crockett on her recent recognition. Congratulations, Glenna. Loved Celine's Little Libraries idea. I know we have one outside of Whittier School, and I've seen them all over town. I think they'd be a great addition to the parks. I know we have that budget for the different advisory boards. We have a sizable amount in our budget to support different projects. Maybe this is one that we could support. I don't think it's a heavy lift cost wise to introduce these libraries in the parks. I think it's a great idea to get kids reading and access to books. So if there's anything we can do to support that, I would wholeheartedly be in support of that. I am deeply disappointed that we closed Good and Welfare today after just an hour. There were 18 people waiting to speak on Zoom. They were not here in person because the roads, are covered in snow, and to not let those people speak, I think, was a miss on our part. If we're going to cut this to an hour at every meeting, I think we maybe need to reconsider the 3 minutes to 2 to allow more people to speak. I mean, if everyone uses their 3 minutes, 60 divided by 3, that's 20 people who get to speak. We talk about, we want openness and transparency, right? We talk about sunlight being the best disinfectant, right? That was a quote by one of my fellow council colleagues. How can we then say that only 20 people should get to speak at Good and Welfare? It's not enough time. So I truly hope you reconsider that policy going forward.
Thank you, Ms. G. As always, I want to thank all of our residents for participating tonight. Mr. Gross, yes, that was a very, very tragic accident, and our thoughts and prayers are with Diamond and her family and everyone affected by this terrible tragedy. And our manager and our police department are looking into ways to better increase safety there and throughout our town, and they will be reporting on that very soon. Mr. Leon, thank you for letting us know about your street. We'll ask our manager to look into that as soon as possible and let us know what is going on. Teresa, my 8-year-old son is an avid skateboarder, and you and the kids have my support on that, and please let me know what I can do to help, and I will talk to my colleagues on council and our manager to see if and what can be done about a possible skateboard park in Teaneck for our kids. And lastly, I want to remind all of our residents that we have some outstanding programs every Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Teaneck Public Library this month during Black History Month. And this Thursday, Reggie Pittman will be speaking, and I support the resolution Councilwoman Belcher has drafted as is. Mr. Manager, is there anything you would like to say, sir?
Just a few response some of the residents that spoke to the Leons. I'll speak to the engineer tomorrow morning, see if we can address the western end. They took a look on Google Map, and I see where it's pretty much a gravel area there. To the resident that spoke about jaywalking, I will certainly refer that to the police department. To Celine, regarding the little library box, I don't believe that was ever a problem. We spoke about this, I think, roughly 2 years ago. And as mentioned, I certainly will donate the first box. So just certainly reach out to me, to any member on council, again, to breathe some life back into this project. Our health department handles garbage complaints. Please feel free to email me or our health officer to address any of those concerns as well. They will do code enforcement. We've made, and Mayor, we've made many traffic calming upgrades to our streets. That includes new striping to narrow some of these roadways, installing speed bumps at several locations. Some residents like them, some residents don't, for reasons of noise. We put in actually portable speed bumps in the municipal parking lot here, because when I walked out to my car across the lot, I was taking my life into my hands because of people that visited the municipal building that would drive greater than 5 miles per hour through the parking lot. So again, we need to start taking some personal responsibility for our actions. When you get behind a 2-ton vehicle, put the cell phone down, put the makeup down, put the portable razor down, and start thinking about what you're doing when you're driving a car. I get very frustrated by this. And my heart goes out to the family that just lost a loved one. We also put in larger stop signs at dangerous intersections. Some are illuminated, like what we did at Lindbergh and Redmond Street. We installed pole-mounted speed radar devices. We put in rapid flashing beacons to help pedestrians cross roadways. We put in thermoplastic rumble strips, and we've done aggressive traffic enforcement. Sometimes these measures also serve to displace traffic. So yes, we address it on one street, it's moved to the next street. Regarding Palmer, right after the accident, I ordered the police department to conduct a 5-year look back study for other ways that we can do some traffic calming there. Larger stop signs, I'm even in favor of 4-way stops. There is a stop sign at every intersection on Palmer. The manual and uniform traffic control device is in place for a reason. However, in some cases, I'm comfortable with making recommendations to council to put in four-way stops at certain intersections. So you have my support with that. Regarding the skate park, I once skated at the old Voti Park roller rink. I'm in favor and a big fan if we can get this done and a location agreed upon. And of course, council must approve the funding. So that would help. And to Cheryl, I just want to go over this quick. Thank you for your leadership on the ABCR. With regards to empathy training, I believe it certainly will help to build fundamental self-reflection and communication skills to strengthen relationships in this community and build greater staff well-being and to engage the community. And I think one of the most easiest and most straightforward ways to practice empathy is to have a conversation with a wide range of people in this community about their feelings and experiences. I think we can benefit from this by exposing residents to new perspectives. And it's very useful for us to get exposed to different lifestyles, worldviews, and life experiences that are not that are different from your own. And I think that's the core fabric of TNEC. I think that's something we should focus on, and I think it really will help this community out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Our next order of business is our consent agenda, and all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature by council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If any discussion is desired by council, that particular item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the amount of the bill list into the record?
Absolutely. And just a quick note, because Councilman Schwartz reminded me, something's going on with our Wi-Fi. Our YouTube feed is down. Well, we'll be trying to fix it. And anyway, regarding the consent agenda, that is one raffle, 4 sets of minutes, resolutions 61 through now, council 78, 2 that we walked in, and the bills list in the amount of $9,242,216.22.
Does anyone want to pull anything?
Pulling at 78 of 2024. That's the audit request.
78, the KMC Legal Services.
Which we walked on this evening. It's not in your packet listed as a resolution.
Anybody want to pull anything else before we take a vote? In that case, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And this is everything except Resolution 78, which we walked in this evening. First by Mayor Pagan, second by Deputy Mayor G. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes, and if there's any bill list for the Jewish Link, the agenda online and over there does not have it. So please refrain me on any Jewish Link items. Yes, and everything else.
You got it. Councilwoman Belcher.
Yes, to all.
Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes, but a recusal on 65-2024, that's the Wayne's Puppy Settlement, and also a recusal on the bills list, the Jardim Meisner invoice 38553, also for Wayne's Puppies.
That was from Yarden.
Yeah, the invoice 38553 and resolution 65-2024.
Both recusals, correct?
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ.
Yes to all.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
Yes to all.
Deputy Mayor G.
Yes, all.
And Mayor Pagan.
Yes to all.
Thank you.
Mr. Schwartz, the floor is yours to discuss 78-20.
Yes, I understand the merits in doing I understand the merits in doing an audit. I think we should probably do an audit of all our organizations. This request, what I'm looking at is literally a forensic audit hiring a law firm. I don't think we should have any volunteers that have to be, we have lawyers to send lawyers after and spend $10,000. So if an audit is wanted and an audit is merited, let's have it start with our CFO and take it from there, or even our auditor. But to spend $10,000 on forensic law firm is just excessive and almost outright embarrassing.
Ms. G.
A point of clarification for Scott Salmon. I believe the Jewish Link was a recipient of some of the funds from the memorial organizations. So I don't know if you should be even speaking on this. I think you're supposed to recuse yourself.
The Jewish Link publishes about 10,000 pages. If a Holocaust museum put a 200-page ad in,
Still a conflict of interest.
I believe I get to see if I want to recuse on something. So if you believe that a $200 ad, and I have no idea how much it is, will change my judgment of calling this town to spend a $10,000 audit, please feel free anytime, anywhere, to file an ethics complaint against me. But if the option is for me, I won't be recusing on that.
Mr. Salmon, I think Danielle G was framing that question toward you. Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. So the question is whether recusals. I can't force. I just preface this by saying I can't force anyone to recuse over anything. It's up to the council members. I think that's a fair point. I frankly had not thought of beforehand. I'm kind of kicking myself for not thinking about it beforehand. But I think that is a fair point that should be considered by Councilman Schwartz. But it's up to him whether or not he wants to recuse.
Ms. Belcher, you had your hand up.
Mr. Attorney, I believe Robert's rule speaks to the fact that colleagues can speak to whether or not a person should have recused themselves or question whether or not they should. Now, I think that if memory serves us right, myself and my colleague while this demonstration was happening from the monument representatives, we were just in receipt of an Excel spreadsheet that speaks to the line item that Deputy Mayor G is speaking about as pertains to Councilman Schwartz being a vendor in this transaction as a transactional vendor. So I think she has every right to question why he did not recuse himself in the vote. I think that, and the other point I just want to make is that the purpose of an audit is to give clarification of what has happened, how monies were spent. I believe, if I am understanding correctly, and perhaps Mr. Manager can explain this, but I believe that our CFO kind of gave an analysis and has worked with you in terms of all information that he can provide. I think we need the whole idea of an audit is to have an independent representative look at the details of each transaction. And lastly, I just want to say this much. I think there's something to be said about allowing an organization to place a monument, any monument of any ethnicity on our township property, not knowing details about that organization. So not only is the audit looking back at how they spent their money, but I think there needs to be an audit as to the composition of these organizations. Have they filed financial reports? Or what type of entity are they? Who sits on their boards, etc. I think that we owe that to our residents. Thank you.
You can always ask. I was not actually saying you should not ask me that. 100%. I was answering. And I'm also not against an audit whatsoever. I'm against a $10,000 outside law firm forensic audit. My suggestion, I think we should do this for all our sports leagues or anyone that is connected to us. I don't know, some of the sports leagues are not. Should we have our CFO or our auditor look at those books? Every comment you're making is absolutely correct. My issue is regarding hiring a forensic law firm to call up these vendors, whoever they are, and spend up to $10,000 on this investigation. This is investigation. This is an audit. These are very important questions. And then, of course, if our internal audit, our CFO, our auditor, who's actually an external auditor, has any doubts, then we have something to go on before we basically have a mayor of Bridgewater who runs a law firm calling up our community residents. And if there's ever a time you want to ask about recusing, by all means, always do, and do it publicly. I've got absolutely nothing to hide.
Ms. Goldberg.
So this audit doesn't actually ask about any of the details of the organizations, but going forward, I do fully support our auditor Bowman working with the administration to explore all of our internal controls and processes as a best practice, but we don't need to spend $10,000 to do that. we should not be focused on a specific project, but our overall internal controls, whether we're talking about a DOT grant money or whether it's sports leagues. I mean, there's just general best practices, but it doesn't have to be tied to a project. And I think this is not necessary. Additionally, the library already did audits on this every year as required by the grant by Weinstein and Weinstein.
Mr. Katz.
Listen, I get it. I was so impressed with your filibustering or attempt to try to derail the process at a couple months meeting. And I say that sincerely, not sarcastically. I actually mentioned it to two people, how you were quickly coming up with great answers and responses of how to try to block it regarding the memorials. I'll tell you personally, I don't know if this new route with the memorials is going to work, but I will tell you that we have like memorials of memorandums of understandings over the last few years. Like we got tons of memorial memorandums. And to me, this is just another attempt to filibuster or try to embarrass some of the volunteers. Because the reality is all of this information is available. The CFO has it line by line to the penny. Bowman, our township auditor, has it line by line to the penny. I'm sure you're well aware of that. So to spend taxpayer money now to try to filibuster on something that may or may not happen, to me is not the best way to go forward. I personally believe that, and I'm not sure, if someone just doesn't want to see one memorial, two memorials, both memorials. Personally think that, you have these volunteers, they're working hard. If something was done, if there was hanky-panky with any money, I don't think it's the township. It wasn't our money. It was state money. We were the custodians of this money, just like we're custodians of other money that we distribute. And I'm not looking to start auditing our Board of Ed, our county money, or Cedar Lane Management Group, which if you may have a concern or complaint about something that they're paying for. So I think it's a bad precedent. So I'm not in favor of this. I would like to see success of both memorials. So I will not be supporting this.
Mr. Katz, Ms. G.
So a couple of things. This is not a filibuster. We have a fiduciary responsibility as the representatives of residents to ensure that we do an audit. I didn't recommend that we spend $10,000. I just said, Dean, can we do an audit? So this wasn't my choice of picking the firm or how much it costs. I asked, can we do an audit of the dollars? The dollars we received were not detailed. There are line items that were unclear. I saw so many red flags in those numbers. And the fact that no one wants to acknowledge that there are red flags that need to be further investigated, to me, is problematic. I'm not out to get any one organization. I just believe if we're going to be working with organizations that want to build long-term structures on our property, not just any Teaneck property, but literally our municipal green, the center of our town, it blows my mind that we would be against auditing it. I would love to consider a lower cost option if there is one. Happy to. I don't like the idea of spending $10,000 unnecessarily, but we do need to do an audit. Whether it's internally, whether it's a lower cost option, sure, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to do an audit of these organizations.
Thank you, Ms. G. Ms. Belcher.
Okay, I would like to say that the uniqueness of this whole scenario is that this is not private property. If this was private property, I would agree with Deputy Mayor Katz, what he's saying about, not having, this, first of all, this is not a filibuster. We have an obligation as leaders within this community to look out for the best interests of our green. I mean, let's be serious. We, think about it. This is property that belongs to the people. This is property that belongs to the people. So we have every right to ask questions. We have every right to get an audit. We have every right to be as detailed as possible. I agree with Deputy Mayor G is saying. We did not choose this auditor. If there is our attorney chose this auditor, this firm. So if there's another alternative, by all means, let's look into it. But by all means, we need an audit.
But every single transaction has already been audited by the library board, by Weinstein and Weinstein.
Ms. G.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant. I just want to repeat that.
I didn't say that. Justice Brandeis said that.
You quoted it.
Does anyone else have any comments on this? Is anyone planning on making a motion?
I make a motion that we move forward with an audit.
Second.
So Doug, we have a motion to approve in a second. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. AMC. Yes. I think that was the only thing pulled from the.
So we had a first from Councilwoman Belcher and a second from Deputy Mayor G for Resolution 78, which was pulled from the consent agenda. Councilman Schwartz. We have Councilwoman Belcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
No.
Councilwoman Organ,
No.
Deputy Mayor Katz, Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
No. Ms. G.
Point of clarification for Scott, if you're still on. Could we move to introduce an audit, either another audit internally?
Absolutely. You can, yes, yes.
Okay, well then I'd like to move that we do an audit internally. I don't believe the numbers that we got in that Excel spreadsheet were thorough enough. So I'd like to move that we do an internal audit if possible, if Dean, if that's possible.
I would second that, but can I edit that a little bit? Can we also include in a view of the organizations in terms of the makeup, who sits on their board of directors, and so forth? If we could find those types of details out, I think would be most useful.
I'm not sure why that's the responsibility of the council. It's not, it's their private organizations.
Okay, why it's important is because we have two organizations that are asking to place a monument on public property. I think we owe it to our residents to know the composition of those organizations.
What does composition mean?
Well, compositions means who sits on their board of directors, what type of entity are they, have they filed their taxes, are they a U.S. company, are they a foreign entity? I mean, those types of things.
I think those are very important questions, and I think I would say that we should have our CFO set up a policy to do that, but to do that for all the organizations that we deal with. I mean, we're giving soccer, and I'm not making any accusations, soccer permits and fields of galore worth millions of dollars a year in rent fees. So I think that we should just charge the CFO with looking to come up with an annual or whatever it is policy on auditing the organizations that we deal with across the board.
I think like an overall control, like internal controls audit on our processes in general is what's warranted.
I think also an audit into the people that sit on their board sounds very threatening. I think it's okay for us to have a conversation with them, and we've done that with each, but happy to have another conversation. I don't think it warrants what's being asked for now.
I disagree. I believe that certainly any organization should be able to say who sits on their board, what is the composition of the makeup of their organization. I don't think it's threatening. I think it's just how business is done.
I just don't think that's the role of this council.
I think it is because of the fact that we're asking to place, we have these entities asking to place a monument on our township property. It is not private property. If it was private property, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be something I would even think of asking. But because this is public property that we are offering to these two entities, I think we have a right to know.
Anybody else want to comment on this? Seeing no hands.
Can I just restate the motion since there were some additions? All right, so I move that we do an internal audit of, how did you describe it, Mark? All partner organizations.
Partner organizations that the township deals with.
That the township deals with.
Soccer, baseball, Holocaust Memorial, Slave Memorial, anything, any organizations. And
the organizations or like I have a problem with an audit on the organizations. I don't think that's our role, but I'm fine with an audit on our processes and controls.
Yeah, I think we should have the CFO, or the auditor come back to us with these. Sorry? Yeah.
Well,
How'd that go? These
what
are
was
real-
unique, about these monument organizations is that they were receiving public funding and we were the custodian of those funds. So I don't know if there's a way to describe those types of organizations, but where we are custodian of public funds, there should be an audit.
What I'm saying is, I have no problem when we were talking about these two organizations, but now when we start talking
What about
makeup and board makeup and everything like that, if we're gonna start talking a review of boards, we should start talking about review of boards. Yes.
I disagree.
Or their auditor, Bowman.
Yeah, before is echoing. Might I suggest, I think, give me the short mic, it's like the short stick. May I suggest that we start with a process before we start with requiring certain auditing, et cetera, and hear back from the CFO. Maybe we want to even invite, if with the manager's permission, the CFO in or on one of these Zooms so we can ask him these questions.
And the auditor.
This is getting a little complicated for us to figure out tonight. So then I kind of want to peel this back then. Can we focus this back on organizations that receive public funding for which we are the custodian of?
So
I'd
Board
like
of
for
Ed
us
and
to,
County.
sure.
And so we're gonna audit the Board of Ed, the county.
The Board of Ed is already closely audited. You can find their financials easily. I mean, the Board of Ed is there's so much public information
No,
about.
You just said with the custodian.
Sure, but it already exists, so that there's not an issue
I
with.
didn't suggest it. I'm just saying.
No, can I say something though? I think I think the component we're missing here in this whole discussion is that we are allowing a monument to be placed on our public property. So should we not know the makeup of the entities that we're allowing to do this? Shouldn't we not know what type of organization are they? Are they a corporation? Are they a 501c3? Are they a nonprofit? Shouldn't we not know those details? Should we not know that they are, whether or not they are a foreign company or they are a domestic company? Isn't that important? Don't you think our residents would want to know that? I think they would. I think our residents want to know what is
Ladies
the
and gentlemen,
composition
Ms.
of those
Belcher,
entities.
your comments are duly noted for the record. Are we going to keep talking about this, or is there going to be a vote?
All right, last chance. So I'm moving that we, I'm just gonna simplify it because this is getting too complicated trying to incorporate all the edits, but I'd like to move that we do an internal audit of the memorial organizations that would like to put structures in our lawn since they received public funding and we were the custodian. I want to keep it narrow just because I don't know how to incorporate all the feedback.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
For that narrow thing, I second. Yes.
Thank you.
Then audit the financials received, not whether or not they supplied nuclear weapons to Iran and a foreign company or whatever that was going with that. But to simply narrow it down.
I'm sure the
to-
public would want to know that though.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. But to narrow it down to the financials related to the specific audit to be started by our CFO and our auditor. Yes.
Mr. Clerk, you got that?
Yeah.
You got that, Mr. Clerk?
Can we have a vote?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to request the current existing audits before we have to delve in and make people do more work. Employees.
We already got that.
I'll second Ally's motion.
We already got it. No,
Yeah, but that's a secondary.
We amended it.
motion,
but
so
Ellie,
that
we received
have to
it.
vote on
We
that
received
first.
the documents.
Listen,
We have a
got
motion in
email.
flight.
I gave you credit for doing an amazing job filibustering last time, and you got up to 9 different amazing ideas of how to stop it. Okay, I could do this all night with you guys. I'm very good at this political stuff. You're not interested in the monuments. I get it. We get it. But let's not make taxpayers pay for your stuff, and let's not make employees work extra hard and run in circles just because you want to try to filibuster it. So let's ask for the existing documents, the existing audits, the existing paperwork, review it. And then if you have a concern, go make a complaint to
right.
whoever monitors public funding.
Thank
We
you.
have
All right,
those
no, wait, time out. Before anyone speaks, Doug, did you hear the secondary motion and amendment that he made just so that I just want to make sure he's clear on what was said before we proceed.
only
If you
thing
guys
that
want to
was
keep
clear-
talking about this. Go ahead, Doug, sorry.
I apologize. The only thing that was clear was the initial motion on the floor from Deputy Mayor G.
Can you please repeat your motion?
I make an amendment that we first supply to the people that are so concerned about this, the already audited statements from the different auditors, whether it's from the library, from Bowman, from our CFO, with all the line by lines that's detailed to the penny. And we provide that existing documents to the council members that are really, really concerned about the public money.
Just wait, let him finish.
And
Please just let him finish.
after they review the line by line, if they have any question about how something was spent, or they feel that there's any hanky panky or something done inappropriately, that we direct them to the state, whoever manages public funding that belong to the state, and that's the difference. It came from the state, and make the complaint there or ask them for additional resources rather than making, this is the long secondary, rather than making our employees or our taxpayers having to pay extra money to be part of the filibustering. That's my entire
Doug,
amendment.
did you get that? And I think it was seconded
Point of
by
clarification.
Councilman. Just give me a second. I just want to make sure
Say
Doug understands this.
clarification.
Just give me a second, please. If you just wait 5 seconds.
Robert's
Doug,
rules.
did you get that? Yes, we're following Robert's rules. Doug, did you get that? And I think it was seconded by Councilman
Amending a
Goldberg.
motion from
And now
Deputy.
Deputy Mayor G has a question for Manager Kozinski.
So Dean, I believe you emailed us everything you already had, right? So I think the reason I asked that is if there were more documents that you have not sent us, then Ellie's point is valid. But my understanding is that you sent us everything because we already asked for it.
Yeah. Everything was sitting. Yeah.
Correct.
So there is
So my
nothing
point
else.
is there is nothing else to,
Are you certain though? Do we have
Yeah.
everything from the library? Do we have everything from everybody else? But please bear in mind, there is a motion and a second on the floor. So yes, please tell us what you're thinking, but there is a motion and a second on the floor. So we're going to have to ultimately vote on it.
I wasn't
Go ahead,
done.
Ms. G.
And then also, I just don't appreciate the disrespectful accusations of saying that I'm filibustering. This to me is really important. I feel like this is my fiduciary responsibility. I'm not filibustering. And I found it very insulting that you did that to me. Very insulting.
Well, I complimented you at the same time.
No, it was insulting. It wasn't.
All right, guys, please keep it professional. There is a first and a second. Doug, you're clear on what they are. Anybody else want to speak about
Yeah,
this?
I
Ms.
do.
Belcher, go ahead.
I want point of clarification from our attorney. Because of the fact that there was a motion put on the floor, there was a first and a second. I just want, Scott, if you could clarify whether or not, Deputy Mayor, Ellie could in fact, edit that motion that was active on the floor, right, as we were ready to vote on.
So he can file a motion amend. I will be honest with you, I'm very confused by what the amendment was. It sounds to me like it was basically a motion to table it, but I'm not 100% clear on what the amendment actually is.
All right, everyone, please, if you can pay close attention. Ellie, can you, maybe a shorter version?
Deputy Mayor Katz.
Okay, let Doug do it. Let Doug do
With
it.
all due respect, you're amending Deputy Mayor G's motion to first locate existing audits already done on the grant funds for council review. The existing, yes, I'll include that article in this motion, but ALL.
Okay, point of clarification.
All right,
So-
wait. Now that Scott knows, because you asked the attorney a question. Scott, are you clear on what is being done, what is being said, what is being asked?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like it's really like a motion to table, but I guess that's yes. The answer is yes. You can do you can amend the motion, and then that amendment will need to be voted on before the main motion.
Yeah, because his motion takes precedence according to Robert's Rules of Order, because his motion was the most recent one. So that's the one we have to vote on, correct?
On whether or not to amend further. The question is just whether or not you want to amend the main motion.
Yes.
For Scott, if town manager is saying he's already given us all these documents, how can we table until we receive all the documents? If he said he just gave us all the documents, like it doesn't even make sense.
Thank you.
He said he gave you all the ones that he had. We're asking for all the ones that exist.
So then, Mr. Manager, are there more documents that you have withheld from us?
I received a zip file from Shanae Hun, the library director. And I will need to check back. I just want to check a few more files from the previous manager, Danielle. That's all from when
Right,
William Broughton was the manager when this all originated.
Okay, so it sounds like someone else is filibustering. So now we have to table for you to go check
All
on
right.
documents
Once
before we
again,
can move forward
if
with the motion.
Everyone could just
Okay.
stay
That's what it sounds
professional. There's a motion and a second. I'm ready to vote. Are you guys ready to vote, or you do want to just keep belaboring this? Because I'm ready to vote. Now she's not clear on what your motion was. Can you say it briefly?
It does.
One more
sound
time.
like- It does sound like the manager.
It wasn't a motion to table. According to the rules, that is not a motion to table unless you say the words motion to table. And he did not say that. He's just making a motion.
It's very clear that there will be some document gathering for council's effication. And the manager will be doing that.
And Mr. Mayor?
Deputy Mayor.
I would like to edit that. I would like to edit that to include exactly what Deputy Mayor Ellie said, but I would like to include having that information presented as a forum to the entire community, because I believe everyone should hear that. Everyone should hear the compilation of all the documents.
Then I don't accept that.
So.
Do I have a
Doug?
second?
Second.
And this would have to be.
I have a better idea.
On what exactly?
I'm gonna make the motion to table this whole mess until the next meeting. Do we have a second?
I just want to say, there's nothing to table. The resolution was defeated, for better or for worse, Deputy Mayor G. The resolution was defeated. She offered a new movement from council that it does sound like the manager will be acting on for council.
So,
and really, there's nothing else on the agenda.
No motion?
You are free to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Do we have to vote on the, there was motions on the table. I'm so confused now. This is very clear.
Nothing's carried, nothing's roll call. I think the next thing is a motion to adjourn.
Wait, no.
No?
I want to make one more.
Happy
motion.
Valentine's Day, everyone.
I would
Ms.
like,
Goldberg, please.
I
go
would
ahead.
like to request to make a motion to direct the administration and the CFO to work with the auditor to review our overall internal processes as a whole for best practices, so that we ensure any funds going forward, we have a clear practice
I'll
across the board.
I'll second. That's
Mr. Clerk.
So that's to do an audit.
It's called an internal controls audit.
A process audit.
Internal controls audit. That was a first from Councilwoman Goldberg and a second from Councilman Schwartz. Councilman Schwartz.
Just on discussion before we vote, I don't think this is for 10:45 at night because a resolution didn't pass. I think this is something that should be council listed at our next meeting and discussed at the proper time when we have the bandwidth to consider it and people have time to comment on it.
Fine with that.
You guys are all over the place
I'm ready
with
to
your
vote.
motions.
a good motion.
I second that.
All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you, everybody, for staying here this long and watching. We hope you have a happy holiday tomorrow. Doug,
Yeah.
thank